Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, certified brewhead.
And I am Nathan from NathanDoesBeer.
And welcome to episode 165 of Beer and Other Shit, the podcast Adjunct series. Nathaniel, we're going to Quebec tonight, mate.
We are going to Quebec tonight. One of the ones that were named in our top 10.
Absolutely, and has been every year, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
in the 5 years, and much deservedly so. This brewery and this particular gentleman now, this episode will equal the most appeared guest on the pod. I guess I was gonna say aside from you, Nate, but you're not really a guest anymore, so
No.
fuck you, you suck. Yeah, man. So which is awesome. So it's like OG to the pod. It's been really cool watching this dude and his business grow and change over the years. The first pub we did was 6 years ago, which is crazy, and the last one we did was about 3.25 years ago. So it's going to be great to catch up. I was just there over the summer, and Nate, you were there on the weekend.
I was just there this past weekend, yep.
Got to soak it up. It's one of my favorite places in Montreal, and I always
Mine
recommend.
too.
Yeah, right. You can't I have no intention of ever going to Montreal and not popping in. It's the best. Exactly. Man, let's get this going. I'm excited for this one, guys. Please welcome Derrick Robertson of BreWskey.
Welcome,
G'day,
sir.
legend. Oh, I muted you. Dickhead, I'm supposed to unmute. I do that all the time. Apologies. Welcome, bro.
No problem.
I know. What the fuck, man?
You talk to talk.
I want to block you out from the beginning. I was like, no, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Good to see you, man. Thank you for hanging out. 5th time. Beautiful.
Yep.
Gorgeous. Yeah, man. A lot's probably been happening with you since the last time we chatted. I know, like, we hung out like 6 months ago in a whole new space in the brewery, which we're going to talk about because that is really, really cool. We have a pretty solid lineup tonight of some phenomenal beers. So shall we get that going?
Absolutely.
Alrighty, tell us about this first one.
All right, so Singularity Citra. It's a beer that we probably the ones that we do the most often is the Singularity Citra, where like the Singularity is a line of single hopped beers that we do.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is like a blend of 3 different citras that we had that we really liked. So it gave a nicer profile. Where often we're just single lotting these things. So
okay.
Really, really happy with this one.
The 3 different types of Citra, what are those?
I say types. I mean, I actually mostly mean lots. So just like we do lot selection, but then sometimes I'll swap off lots, get some different varieties, you know.
Gotcha. Okay, I see what you mean. So do you go to like Yakima or whatever and select?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've done it 2 years in a row. Well, 2021, 2022, we did both. Then we didn't go last year. We were just working off our old lots.
Okay.
Because we kind of been backlogged on how much hops we bought, like many people in the industry.
Yeah, right.
It just kind of happened that we thought we were going to be building, like the annex was going to be built out a year earlier. It took a little bit longer to build out, but I had contracted for the full amount, so.
Gotcha.
Give it a break.
So you had to sort of push that out. Look, yeah, as long as you've got, I mean, they keep for a while if they're in the fridge and stuff, right? Like it's not like a problem as far as. Yeah,
as long as they're kept cold, they don't really degrade. Some stuff gets better. Like I find that older Mosaic seems to actually like get a little bit better. Huh. But then there's other things that like they do fall off a cliff. Like I had some 2021 Citra left, and I've been just using that in the whirlpool because not getting the same.
It's not slapping.
Like, no, exactly. Yeah. But like the year before was fantastic. So you kind of get like some stuff you get 2 years on, other stuff like you could just have it for 5 years and you don't really see much of a difference.
Right.
But a lot of brewers will like put massive emphasis on just like the years because they are indicative, right? They will let you know that the product's slightly fresher, so you have a better chance of it being fresher because then you're not dealing with too much storage issues, I guess. Gotcha. But like our stuff comes straight from Yakima, so they're dealing with storage. We're not going through like a third party or going through other stuff. So it's not like it gets sold to somebody, then somebody else resells it, then it gets to somebody else's fridge. It just goes straight from their fridge to ours. So it kind of guarantees a little bit of the supply chain that way.
That's great. I didn't even think about that, the third parties. Well, first and foremost, gentlemen, looking forward to it. Cheers, boys. Get that in you. The nose is crazy. As soon as I cracked the can.
Oh, yeah.
Huge. Oh, hell yeah. That's beautiful. Super tropical. Damn. Really bright. How fresh is this? Like, is it a couple weeks, week old?
I think that was canned like Friday, last Friday.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. It's given like super fresh, but it also, the good thing, I don't think it's like, I mean, I know you were, when I was there with you in August, you and Guillaume were being mad picky about your stuff, which I found really funny. But it's not like I like it's got the hop burn, which I really love, but it's not like sometimes when they're really, really young, they'll have like that really hectic kind of burn that maybe overwhelms a bit. Do you like the hop burn, right? You're a fan of that?
Not really, not at all.
No?
Like it's not something I go for. I do like what I've been fighting on my preferences and like the amount of astringency I want. I wouldn't call that burn. Like some people might call it burn, but it's like it's just freshness that comes off more like polyphenol astringent. So it's kind of, because like these things don't really have IBUs in them, like they're really low bitterness. So you kind of need something to counteract the sweetness to not just become a fruit juice. But now we've been slowly just going, maybe like, let's try to lean in more into the fruit juice flavor and like lower down the astringency. So that's kind of like, this is one of the beers that's like a step towards there. We're just trying to find our grounds on where do we want to sit in the like 2024, what kind of products do we want to release? Right. And like a lot of the astringencies is something we're trying to reduce, because it kind of takes away the overall like not drinkability, but it removes like it kind of masks the underlying flavors by just being too intense.
That makes sense. So it's an astringency, not hop burn as such.
Yeah, because like, to me, when I go hop burn, it goes like green burns the back of your throat. You know, like often that's what I consider. What I consider like that green stuff, like it just sometimes you get it like from chunks and stuff. And I find like a real green beer, after you have it, you could have a Pilsner and it feels like it's burning. Right, so like hot sauce. It just kind of does that. Like after you have some hot sauce, you just have hot food, and it feels like it's all spicy again. Like real solid hop burn does that. Like this has obviously has a hop, like fresh hop product. Like it's freshly hopped in that sense. But I don't find it's like I would go from this beer to a lager, and it wouldn't give me that hop burn that I would associate to a green beer.
Yeah. Right. You know what? That makes complete sense. And I can definitely tell the difference. Like it's not giving you that greenness, but I guess I never really thought about the differentiation between like actual hop burn / green vibes, which like that is more like from the chlorophyll in the plants or something like that, or some sort of plant derived, hop derived thing. Would be my guess.
Like we don't really know. It's kind of because let's say stuff like some breweries just have real big issues with it. We usually don't. But then you have like the Australian problem that you just start throwing it. Yeah, you just put Aussie hops in there and start getting a problem. Like,
sorry guys.
Like but it's just like there's something like Galaxy, Vic Secrets, all those. They're just like you put those in beer, and like you have to sit them an extra week. You have to throw things to try to clarify them. You have to really think about what you're doing, because those they'll burn you no matter what you do. Where like the same beer, same identical beer that you throw just Citra, and you could throw 3 times more Citra in the same beer, that like one bag of Galaxy will just create that burn. So we've tried to, sometimes you try to associate where it comes from. Like at some point I was talking to Troy from Badlands, and he's like, he thinks it's a yeast thing that just like it kind of floats. Like we test and we try to figure it out. It sometimes settles out, but sometimes it's burny. Like it's as burny for like the first week, and like you taste the can a month later and it's still burn. But it's not something that's very common. We try to get that, like we try to fix that problem before it goes to cans. because we don't like that profile at all.
That's fair. Interesting that Troy thinks it's a yeast thing. We do a collab with, well, we've done it twice, a collab with Sawdust, with all Aussie hops. And the first time you could drink this beer a year later and it was fine. It was like, it's like an 8.5% double IPA because it's Galaxy Vic Secret. I think the first year was Ella. And the second time we did it was Galaxy Vic Secret and Enigma or something. And it was still pretty fucking burny. And the rest of their beers, though, of that style are not burny. So it kind of has to, I was thinking it had to be the hops.
Like where you sometimes might describe intense hazy IPAs as chalky. This one is almost like gunpowder. With how intense it was.
It was over the top. Yeah. And I guess there's nothing they could do to restrain it because of those hops. So it's like, it's funny because that was like the shit for so long, like Aussie hops, and then all of a sudden the Kiwi hops come in, they're just wiping the floor with everything. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's because the Aussie hops are just like, when you look at the amount of alpha acid, it's just indicative of how burny they're going to be. It's like a lot of it is coming from the alpha acids. There's a lot of stuff that we can tell that's going to happen, but like they're almost as intense as cryo hop. So like a Vic Secret's 23 alpha acid, and then you look at Motueka is going to be 4, 5.
Oh wow!
So like these things, they go into the beer and like they don't, the like high level Aussie hops are insanely alpha acid forward, and then the almost everything coming from New Zealand doesn't have that.
Oh,
and
shit.
Unless we're just selected that way, but they do the same effect, which is always very interesting, that they make a milk beer. Like what it used to be the standard thing, like if you hop with it, like if you would hop something with an Australian hop, you could just tell that beer is whiter than any other beer that like you ever done. And then you do this like when you do it with Motueka, Nelson, or anything from Australia, from New Zealand, you get that same look, but it doesn't burn. And so there's something inside the hops that are like that southern hemisphere stuff that's really giving a really nice color. That's why a lot of people are leaning into them right now. It's just because it gives you like that really nice haze, but it's not giving you that flavor, burn, and intensity and everything that's inside of it.
Interesting. That makes so much sense, man. The alpha acids. I never thought. No one's really ever confirmed that, but I guess I never asked. Like, you and I had a conversation before the last podcast, I don't know if you recall, about some breweries who had been doing hop burn, and you were saying you were speaking to them, and the breweries that we were talking about, I don't want to put them on blast, but they didn't know what was causing it either. But it sounds like it's just these big-ass alpha acid hops, if that's probably the main contributor to it.
For sure, on stuff like from the Aussie stuff, it's definitely a main contributor. There's something about their polyphenol look that makes them change color too. There's a lot of stuff that seems to happen in those, but other ones like Citra, if you look at Citra and you look at like Citra, I've had lots of Citra that make like white beers and lots of Citra that make a little bit clearer beers. It's not always the same, and those are still like mid-range. They're about 13% alpha acid, so higher than New Zealand stuff, but lower than Australian stuff. But like I could put a ton of Citra in a beer, like rouse it, which means like mix the tank and not have an issue. If I put Australian hops inside the tank, I don't touch it. I let it sink to the bottom, and I get those hops off the beer as quickly as possible. And every time I do it, I'm scared because I'm just going like, what's gonna happen here? And I'm using them because I have them, because like they were the shit for such a long time. It was just like you had to have Galaxy, you had to have Vic Secret. Like you open a bag of Vic Secret, you're like, my God, does this smell good?
Oh yeah.
But what you get out of the beer is not like that pineapple fruit bomb. You just get burn. And like we're trying to see, like maybe trying to see how well they work in like West Coast IPA, because West Coast IPA not being hazy doesn't really get that green burn so much. It's like point. You can knock everything out. But I mean, will I be able to knock out that beer from that kind of haze to nothing? Probably, but we don't have filters, like real actual filters. We don't have centrifuges, so we're limited by gravity and then things like biofine to just drop these things out. So
interesting. Yeah, I'd never really thought about like the actual cause of it all. Like what else? Well, in that level of depth, that's awesome. I wonder. Troy was saying recently, funnily enough, talking about him and Galaxy, the recent batch, and I don't know if it means the recent harvest, maybe, of Galaxy.
They're not. They might be harvesting now.
Okay,
But so 2000, like you get 2024 would be you're starting getting that I think in May, June or something.
Okay, so whatever batch he has
2023.
now. So it must be 2023. Okay, so whatever batch he has now, he said he's finally happy with it. And
Yeah.
so maybe it's a little lower acid potentially, and less burny, and kind of delivering. Otherwise, I remember one of the main things we took from him a few years back was how much Galaxy kind of sucked for a while, and there was maybe like a couple of years where it was just kind of like a flat hop, and maybe a bad harvest or whatever it was. Did you find the same thing did you like stop using it for a bit, or were you kind of like happy with what you had access to?
I kind of I got to select it at some point. So what I got was because I got a whole bunch of stuff, and I selected the one that was really good, and we got that one. And like what we have as Galaxy is good, but it's still like so it's easier to use than other ones because like again that one's alpha acid was like in the 15s. But then I looked at like I just made a beer with Topaz and Ella, and they were like in the 20s, so those weren't. But so it's something that like I definitely saw a steep drop off of the quality, and I think everybody did. So a lot of the hops became more and more available at that point, where it used to be really hard to get, and then they just became easier to get, but they didn't seem to get any better. They just like were easier to get, and I think now they might be doing a little bit of effort to get them back on par. But out of all of them, I would say that like Galaxy was always the one that kind of got away being always a little bit okay. But like people like there's Troy at Badlands does one of the better jobs with Galaxy than most other brewers. Like he has such a weird fermentation style and such a weird like overall beer that's a little bit different than everybody that like allows him to do that. Like because I know that when he dry hops he's a little bit clearer. Like my beer is hazy before I throw dry hops in. But other beers, like, so sometimes when I think about building a Galaxy beer, I think about building a beer that's going to be clear. Like, try to get that thing, like, I lower adjuncts, I remove oats as much as possible, I change my water profile. I try to get that thing so that it might drop almost, not clear, but like almost West Coast style, like or like Keller style. And then I could dry hop it, and it has a little bit more space to pick up those astringencies and kind of be there a little bit better. Where like if I take let's say Singularity Citra and I dry hop that beer with Galaxy, it becomes Bernie automatic. That one's not built to take that kind of hop. So and that's just I'd say that consideration only is true for Australian ones. I can make like every other one I could build like more or less the same way. And then they work. It's really, really just an Australian thing.
Wow. Is there something specific, without making this a hop podcast, is there something specific about like the Aussie hops? Is it the terroir? Is it how they grown or how they were developed that's made them that way? Or is it literally just the high alpha acids that's causing all this problem?
I mean, that's what I suspect. Like, I think that's what a lot of people seem to suspect. But the problem is that it's such a closed market over there. You don't really get to select all that much. You don't get to really like every other farm is so open. Like New Zealand is all these tiny little farms that are so like that you can talk to. You could go to Freestyle, you could go to Edgar's, you can go to NZ Hops. It's all cooperatives. But then like the program in Australia is just like a much larger single business, and they kind of like they blend to stuff. They're not really interested in selling things. I think they got just so massively hyped up at the beginning that it's like anything that got so much hype at the beginning, it's just not able to properly, like, it might be recorrecting, and maybe the next years we're going to see them step up, because as the demand for those hops go down, because at least in our side, everybody's switching everybody I know is switching to New Zealand stuff.
Right.
It's like a lot of there's still remaining contracts, so it still fills up those things. So people are still buying from them, and there's still some sort of attachment. Like people want to have a good Galaxy beer. They want to have a good, like, I think Vic Secret, sure, but like the other ones have kind of good names, but they don't really get the same clout. Like things like Enigma, Topaz, like they're all good hops, but it's just hard to get them to express the way that anybody would be happy to have them after. I think that's the biggest problem is like the hops that New Zealand is pumping out very high quality hops in general, and they're doing proper quality control. So people that are making beers with them are actually getting products that are good right away. Like most, like if I get a bag of Galaxy, it's like a lot of the times it's like if I didn't do selection, I'd get an okay thing, and then you're kind of stuck with this okay thing. So either you're going to use it in
on a contract too,
use it in dry, or you're going to use it in the dry hop. But if you get almost every time, if I go to Freestyle and I ask them for just just any hop, they're going to give me something that's great. If I go to like now NZ New Zealand Hops is repped by YCH, they go do hop selection. So most of the times what they're going to send you is going to be something good also. So everything you're getting is going to be this nice, good quality because they're like open to trying to sell that stuff out versus the Australian stuff is just going straight from like in Canada, you're getting them mostly from Hops Connect. I think like there's the sole distributor. So they just send everything there and then you get through that one part. Like there's one seller in Australia that's selling it to like one vendor in they're I think in BC or something, in Ontario. Then that vendor's then selling whatever lots that they get off to other people. So so that whole setup is not necessarily working all that great for it. I kind of, but I kind of see the same thing happening across a lot of varietals that are like not as interesting anymore anyway. Where like it was a big shock to me when I started going back toward like using places like Crosby hops and a few places that like are selecting things like just as silly as Citra or like Columbus or a few things where they're not just like a second thought. They're just like, these are hops that we want to provide to high quality, and you start getting those where it used to be if you just get Citra off the spot market, or not Citra, but like Cascade off the spot market, it was terrible. You could it was meant to you throw that thing in like your whirlpool, maybe it was like a 15-minute edition, just like kind of use it, but it wasn't meant for aromatics. Right. But then you start getting it off of, because it was just varietal that was grown. It had croppage, it had acreage. But like now, when you get these, especially with like the market of these hops, and just like the global market's kind of, the demand's kind of going down. Seems like a lot of these hops, we're able to now get these really good quality hops across the board. That's allowing us to like just re-explore old ones that have been good and that were really good too.
That's kind of fun though. That it kind of like you've got that option to kind of mess with something different, change up the profiles, and sort of approach it in a different way, different combinations. Because I guess it's got to be like probably one of the, which I've never really thought about and we never talked about here, but like probably one of the more, I was gonna say toughest. I don't know if it's like tough, but like there's a finite amount of hops and therefore a finite amount of combinations. And with like it's almost like difficult to make a total unique profile in a beer, at least like a hazy IPA or even a Westie, because everyone's got access to the same stuff. So it's like, I guess the differentiation now is like the change in the harvest and like you were saying, like different hops that are coming back into style or that now have improved. Like say New Zealand Cascade, which I think you might have touched on just before, like that's a totally different hop to PNW Cascade, from what I understand, which is
just like, every terroir, like Cascade grows well everywhere, right? So every place is going to grow and it was going to taste completely different. Like there's one, like a collab I did years back with the boys from Third Moon. They had, because we had gone over there and they had like 100% Cascade hop from like Pleasant
Valley probably.
Yeah, something like that, Pleasant Valley hops, and that Cascade just tasted like Mosaic. was insane.
Huh.
And then so when we got that one, like that's the collab we did for second year anniversary, the one that I think it was Brew Moon or something that we did. So that one was all Ontario hops. Like it was Cascade and Chinook, and then the year after we just tried to get like a contract or something over there, and it was already always sold out.
Right.
So I tried for a year or two, and then just kind of gave up getting those hops. But like, so the like Chinook's the massive one. The Cascade taste is different, like a little bit different everywhere. Obviously, switching to New Zealand makes a big jump. But then you have like Chinook, Pacific Northwest Chinook tastes or smells like very piney and very earthy. Then you have it in Michigan as pure pineapple, like complete pineapple.
You say Chinook is pineapple?
In the Michigan one, yeah.
Wow.
Like the downside though is like they're hops that I was using at some point, but then it's just you throw them on the label and nobody cares, no matter how good they are. Like they don't understand like the terroir stuff. But to get back to you, like what you're saying is like thinking about complete beers. Like this week I was testing out. I had some hops from Edgar Farms, which is just like one farm in New Zealand, and they sent me like 7 different lots to look at, which are just of Nelson, and every single one of them could have been their own different, distinct beer. And that's one singular farm. That's like a small farm. So it's hard because like
wild.
As of right now, we always just think of hops and like putting something on a label. Like let's say Singularity Citra. If I was to do Singularity Nelson, I just like it would just say Nelson. But there is like within that same varietal like like a very wide range of aromatics and flavors that you're going to be getting. And like freestyle, like places like Freestyle actually offer, like they'll tell you can do different little choices, but you can also, they'll tell you like, do you want some early pick, some like middle pick, or some late pick stuff? So it'll just taste completely different based on those things. And then different region, different stuff.
A little while ago, Guillaume at La Ketch did a freestyle Moteca one, and he did 2 versions of it. One being early pick, and one being late pick, and they were surprisingly different in profile.
Yeah.
Would you ever do something like that with that context? Because I forgot about that, Nate. I felt like this felt it reminded me of something, but that's what I was thinking of. I didn't realize it was that different. Like if you're saying one farm sent you 7 batches of Nelson, they were all different. Like that is way more than I thought that it ever would be. Would it be do you think that like, could you literally do a series of Nelson beers? Like, all right, Nelson 1 from the Northwest corner, whatever the fuck, like you could do something like that? Or is that like just too specific for the market to handle?
In some ways, like that's, because I think that it's something I'm wanting to possibly explore, because it gives you that alternative of like just looking at a can and people saying, hey, this one's just Citra Nelson again, you know, because you're just calling it, because it just says Citra Nelson. We're like, yeah, but it's this lot of Nelson, it's this lot of Citra. Like we talk about Nelson, like in terms of croppage, like I think New Zealand has like the croppage of one farm in Yakima. They're like, if they're doing, the
whole country
options that there is in, probably it's
fuck,
because Yakima is the biggest growing region of hops in the world, so it has a lot. Like, and when you just think of those, when they start one farm, every different like plot of land that is growing a hop, and every time that you're like, they'll actually become mature at different times, just based on how much light and how much water they're getting. And then even if like both fields are they're perfect right now, then they get picked at 2 different days because there's just so much picking that they're able to do at the same time. So there's a huge variety and variability that you're going to be getting to these hops. So it does just change a lot in that sense. So I think that what I'm seeing is even from places like Le Ketch that are doing these, like they just did one recently for Nelson with 2 different ones, and it's just, I think that that's kind of where a nice like expansion or a nice thing to present to people, where you could just show them, hey, look, this is going to be Nelson from here. This is Nelson from there. This is like, because if you like Nelson, you're going to like this beer. They remain Nelson. They're not. It's not like it's a whole other thing. It's not like, hey, this Nelson now tastes like like it might taste like Rawaka, but it's not going to suddenly taste like Motueka.
Right.
It's not going to go these crazy different these different things. They are the same plant, but the beer within itself, if it's drank, like if you drink them both beside each other, they're going to be quite distinctly different. And I think it just makes it so that we, like, at least I look at it as, hey, I could finally do a Citra Nelson like more often and have them on my menu more often, because I did one 2 months ago. I'm not going to do one again, even though the beer's going to come out different. But now it's just going, you know what? Doesn't really matter so much. Let's just try to push that this one was picked up over here. This is what we did to it. This is this one comes from this one. And then like it opens up hop combinations that we know work fantastically well together. But we don't do as often because we don't want that redundancy. We don't want like that fridge just filled, or like that board filled up with just Citra Nelson 5 times over. Right. But if we sell it as being, hey, Citra Nelson, there's five. Why is there 5 beers at Citra Nelson? Well, they're all completely different. Try them.
Right. So
we have to feel it's completely different too, though.
Yeah, from your side for sure. Otherwise, you'd be wasting time. But what you're really saying, and I hadn't considered this either, is that this is putting beer in wine territory heavily as far as harvest year and terroir. So like, and then same, like you could have Gamay grapes in this part of the farm and then in the complete other side of the farm, and they'll be completely different. So it's the same concept, but people understand years in wine. They don't really understand vintages, I guess, in beer, unless it's like this year's barrel-aged stout and then next year's blah, blah, blah. So like, this could take a more regular beer that isn't some sort of barrel-aged thing and just be, maybe you could have a series for it, like a brewery could have a series of same base, whatever, and it's just different, like you said, like this, and your combinations are almost, like I was saying before, that there's finite, and actually almost, obviously it's finite still, but it's like, opens that up like 100x, because then the combinations, if you've got 5, or you said 7 Nelson, I think that's just a great example, 7 Nelson, then you're going to get 7 different Citra from either different years or from different parts of the farms that you as the selector and brewer feel comfortable, like as in positioning them that look, these would all create different beers. Then you can do single hops with each, then you got like 7 times 7 just for those 2, and then add that with all the other hops. I mean, that would make probably life into like hella interesting for the brewer side, but also for the drinker too. And it would be educational if you're able to express that through the marketing, like this is actually different because X, which is that's pretty dope. I like that. I like that whole concept of that, man. No one's ever mentioned that before. That I knew that there's obviously terroir, but I didn't realize the breadth of the difference with anything, which just like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people, I feel like I hear maybe more the haters of like haze, like, oh, it's all the fucking same, bro. I'm like, no, it's not, man. It's very different. And this would really kind of like drill home that point that, like, you might think it's the same, but trust me, like this is a whole different beast when it comes to the variances within that. I think it'd be good for hop producers as well. I feel like that's just like this seems like a really cool move. If any, I mean, like obviously Guillaume's doing it. Would you consider doing something like that? Like,
it's something that I've been wanting to, like, years ago. So we did like it was more, we were doing a series called Versus, and we did other stuff that were like more process driven. Okay. I'd say than like varietal driven like that. So we had done like biotransformed Citra versus regular Citra, and then we had like other things that were in the mix of just like, we did one for L'Allemand, which is a yeast provider, where we had done 4 different it was just the same beer that we fermented with 4 different yeasts, and then had people like say which one they liked better. So it was something that was part of the process. Then we just got massively too busy. And now it's something that we've been wanting to kind of bring back as our tank space, because of the new space is going to be allowing us to do these things a little bit more easily. That we're just trying to bring these things back, because it's as much of a, like, a lot of what I want to do in these brewing things is it's educational for me, and then just trying to see how can we like translate this educational part to the people that are consuming it, so that they're able to like kind of get into it and have a reason to have these things. Because when we did like the 4 beer release, then people would come and they bought all 4 beers, and then that's like, then they're tasting all of them. So it's great for our sales in that sense too, but it's just for us also to go, hey, like this is the same base, the same everything, the only thing different is this. And then doing that across the board for a few different things. And like there's a lot of stuff we're going to be testing in house like in the upcoming months, and if something that we develop seems to be good enough to be released as like a can release, then we may make the tests bigger than just like pilot stuff for us. But definitely hop things are going to be coming, where it's like our process has now been stabilized, where like we don't do biotransformation, we don't do we kind of just have this like it changes all the time, but there's like more and more rigidity in the changes. It's like just fine tuning in many ways. And in those cases, it just like it allows us to not look at something like biotransformed versus just post firm dry hop, but going, okay, let's just do the same thing identically to 2 different beers and see what comes out.
What's biotransformation?
It's just like it's kind of adding hops during the fermentation of the beer.
Okay.
So it was like what thiols are now is like what people like the big I guess marketing term, or the big word that everybody used to use back a few years ago was just biotransformation. And it was just because it was like it just really meant like, because a lot of people assumed that was the way you make New England IPAs.
Right.
Was just like you have to throw hops into active fermentation, because that's how you get the fruitiest and most flavorful thing, but it causes its own set of problems. So a lot of people, like there's still a large proportion of brewers that do it that way, but like a lot of us have stepped away from that and are just doing post-fermentation dry hopping.
I honestly, I don't know about you, Nate. I never heard that before at all.
I'd heard the term before, but I never but I never knew what it meant or thought to ask. So I'm glad to learn that now.
See, this is why you have scientists. You're a scientist. You have like a biochemist background or something from memory?
No, I'm mechanical engineer.
Mechanical engineer. Why do you know so much about the science side of the beer?
I wouldn't say I do. Like I look at those things as more building blocks and like puzzles. I'm really not that. I'm process oriented, sure, but like chemically, like the chemical side, not as much, or the biological side, not as much.
Gotcha.
It's just like a lot of time spending on like, I think everybody, when it was like the biotransformation days, it was just how do you have something stay hazy, like because that was as much as it was like it looked at as something. I mean, it still is for some people hard to do, but it's not a very like it's easier. It seems to be easier. Like people know more about how to do it now, but like in the early days, it was just like you make a beer and there's a chance it drops out, and then you just have a sweet bomb. So it's just like a lot of effort went into figuring out how to make these things hazy. So like biotransformation was a vehicle for that for a while. So, but it was just, it's shown, like most studies now show that it actually removes haze by doing that. But it's just like, everybody's learning. That's why people get into this industry, right? That's why I got into it. Like, that's why I love it so much. It's just because like I could have this conversation a year from now and everything I say might go like, I know what I told you last year, but now this is what I think.
Huh. I guess that does make it fun.
I don't know where it's gonna go.
Yeah, that's fun, man. I like that a lot. I like that approach to everything. And like, just to come back to this beer, this is fan-fucking-tastic. Like, I love your haze so much. There's whatever you're doing, there's some sort of like, I really like the milky haze, and I find that most of your beers have that real I don't know what it is about it. To me, that just usually typically has a big punch of flavor. I'm just like, this is glorious. Like, I love this, and I just like the way you guys approach haze. I really feel like since you got the brewery, I know you were contracting prior when you just had the tap room upstairs, but when you got in 2018, I think it was
2019 we started brewing, like
19?
October.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was that summer. Okay. I remember being there when you were sort of doing what we're talking about, the mechanics of physically getting the tanks into the building because they had to fucking take the walls off or some shit. Like, it was crazy. And it's like you dialed it in something crazy, because I feel like the beers are always solid, but I feel it's just like next level. And then obviously you guys essentially, which I think I've given you props before, and I think you might have pushed back on it, but I thought you were the pioneer. I always tell people anyway, maybe I'm wrong, that you pioneered smoothie sours in Canada. Is that fair? I know you're a humble man, so you'll probably say no, but
Like, the first people that did it were Nouvelle France. But they kind of did it under the radar that nobody knew. And then Miss Sorum did it before us by a few weeks or something, but we were the first ones that put it in a can, so we get like a lot of the credit just because we canned, and then we had such a hype, and like it took a while for anybody else to like be okay to can.
Okay.
We developed a lot of the techniques after a while it started to become like something that, because we were mobile canning, so we had people coming in, and at some point like the mobile canners like were able to tell other people that, hey, we're getting these things into cans, because like the first runs we were just like losing so much product. It was just just because I guess the early visions of smoothie sours, they're completely changed to what they are now, where things like carbonation, I would put a lot of value on being carbonated as much as possible, and be like all these things that, like, if you have high carbonation and like a particulate problem, like a beer that has particulates inside of it, it'll create nucleation points that just like gushes the beer out. So you're going into these cans, and the beer's just trying to get out before you put a lid on.
Yeah.
But that same problem kind of happens when if you're at home, and then you're like, because we'll have our tanks at 0 degrees, and if you're gushing out of your can at 0 degrees, when you bring it to your house and you're like at 4 degrees, you crack that can, and that can might gush out 30% of it. So like that's all stuff that we were kind of learning way back when, where like we then started reducing carbonation, reducing stuff, like increasing these things, making sure that our purees were more like, I guess like more pureed in a way, like not like there's a lot of stuff we got offered, a lot of stuff that are chunky and stuff, and the chunky ones, they'll just like, you'll crack that can and it'll just gush out. Right. So it's all things that we were kind of learning. So in that way, you can look at it as us being in the pioneers of doing it, but mostly just because of the actual volume output, not necessarily the order in which they were output. So really so it's like but the people that really don't get their props for it was Nouvelle France for having done it.
Well, thank you for confirming that, because you may have told me that in the past, and often I forget things on these podcasts due to the volume of alcohol consumed. But that is great. So like that would probably explain it, because I always remember you guys having it in cans. I knew Mesa was doing them, but I didn't realize it was like the can versus that. So that makes complete sense. So how you guys feel about it? So I think we're all basically wrapping this bad boy up.
My glass is empty, so yeah, we got to get on to the next one.
Uncle Derrick, you tell us, man.
That was fucking fantastic.
Oh, it is so good. I'm looking forward to this so much, because fuck, man. I'm just in love with it all.
What do you Cyrus?
Cyrus? Let's go.
Yeah, Cyrus, my jam right now.
So this is the one that I had that I had on tap at when I was at the Annex this past weekend, and it was tasting mighty fine.
You did specifically text me about that one. Was that, yo, this shit slaps.
I did notice that we had almost no beer on draft when you came.
Wasn't much going on.
That we just always get, like, we're kind of in a brewing cycle for the anniversary, so it filled up a bit of the our tanks, and like with slower products a bit, but it just, Igloo Fest finished, and then it was the Family Day, I guess. We always get caught with that, right? We always get caught with
the Ontario.
Forgetting that Ontario has a long weekend, that one, and we're about to get slammed. So
Even though I've lived here now for a year and a half, I still forget the family days a thing. I was in Quebec for so long. And I'm like, what do you mean it's a long weekend in February? For what? For Valentine's Day? That's silly. I remember when
doesn't Ontario get like a weekend, like a long weekend every month? Like Quebec just shoves them all into like one
the summer.
little periods of times.
Well, you get Jean Baptiste Day, which we don't get here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know, I've had my own business for so long, like it's relevant to me. I'm like, oh, it's the day off. Now I got to pay an employee for fucking not doing anything. That's the way I see it.
That's what exactly. I just get like so who's gonna take Monday off in the brewery?
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you say? Oh, it's a long holiday. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Like, yeah. God damn it. Oh, so
figure
you
out
take
the
it
whole
off.
cycle that we're gonna be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either someone takes it off or they're getting paid double time.
Yeah.
I don't want to. It seems very capitalistic to complain about that, but so it's okay. We're allowed to, like. I feel like sometimes in I've noticed in beer that like one thing I know is people don't always understand They forget that beer is a business because they're so excited about the art of it, which I completely get, and I always find that kind of like interesting.
Well,
that people forget.
It's both, right? I think that any person doing any part of the business has to think about both. Where,
of course,
like I know that when anything I do is like that critical line of thinking about how much it's going to cost, what's it going to be, what can I think for efficiency.
Yeah.
They're all important, right? Like it's all important. And you also just choose to what's the most important is the product is king. Like that's everything. So
yeah,
you can't cheap out on any part of the process, but you could try to make it better and make it more efficient.
Yes, I think people would definitely appreciate that for sure. But it's an interesting conversation always in the world of beer. But this bad boy, so this is an oat cream double IPA, which I don't even know how many of those I may have even come across over the years. So it's 8.5 with Eldorado and Superdelic, hence Cirrus EDS or EDS, I guess.
That's Guillaume. Like my partner kind of gets annoyed of coming up with names, so he just abbreviates stuff. So it's Cirrus EDS, so Eldorado Superdelic.
Hey man, I like it.
As simple as that.
You know what? You were just talking about efficiencies. That's an efficiency if I've ever seen one. Gentlemen, get that in you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hell yeah. Nice nose. Oh, there she is. Oat creams have such a I love them so much.
Yeah.
They have this is great. Such a unique profile. It's like the lactose immediately like gives it like, and I know you kind of are a little restrained with the lactose as far as like you're not like, bucketing the shit in, you're using it just to ramp up the body touch sweetness type thing.
Yeah, I kind of just I mean, almost all my oat creams are like 16 grams per liter, so it's not a huge amount of lactose in there.
Okay.
But I could increase them more, but the body's already so sweet, everything's so sweet inside of them that it just rounds everything out and makes it nice and creamy.
Yeah.
Because that's the big thing that made me love these like oat creams was when I started like just making it as low as possible. Okay. And kind of settled on that 16, and that's kind of what I do across the board on all of them. And it just like it's there, you can't taste it, but it's kind of present. But even like a lot of my like lactose stuff, I never go very heavy on them. And one thing I never do is like, because for a long time I thought I didn't like lactose, but I just didn't like vanilla in my IPA.
Okay.
Because I just associated everything that was like this thing's really bad. Like, what is this? It's lactose IPA, but it's like lactose and vanilla. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't like that profile because it just makes everything kind of, well, I mean, they're called milkshake IPAs and that sucks, but like it made everything really milkshakey. Mm-hmm. So, but just like straight little bit of lactose is just great for this.
Yeah, it's I feel like I feel like they're not as common as they kind of use. There was the time when, like you mentioned, milkshakes. Obviously, Nate and I were the biggest fans in the world of that shit. And I remember I specifically came by one Christmas when I was going to Toronto, and you gave me like a growler of some. I think this is wrong. Like a carrot milkshake IPA, something like hella weird. Pumpkin milkshake IPA. Pumpkin.
Maybe it was I did do a pumpkin milkshake something IPA.
I think that might have been it. I love that.
At this point, I've done so many weird things that I don't really. That was
ages ago.
Like 3-4 years ago. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was pre-pandemic for sure. It would have been 2019 or even 2018. Back when like.
That's the only reason why I did it. At least put vanilla and make a milkshake was because it was a pumpkin milkshake IPA. Because I was like, if I'm gonna make a pumpkin beer at this time of year, I may as well go
all the way in, right?
Why not?
Because I've also made a carrot IPA. That was also interesting. Like, I don't think that was the lactose one. I just mostly did it for the color because it was completely orange. But
right, which is when did that? No, you did the smoothie with had carrot in it.
No, I never made a smoothie with carrot. I think I did a tangerine carrot sour IPA or something like that. I don't know.
What am I thinking of then? Maybe I'm thinking of that one that had like 15 collab breweries on it, and it was like it had something strange in it.
The 15 collab breweries. I think that would have been Third Moon that we were with them.
That's
like it was their collab, not
yes.
I forget if we had to make it with them. Oh, that was a while ago. Like, because I know everybody all breweries chose a fruit, but I don't like. I think it's they made it, or I wasn't sure if they made it or we all had to make it. At that point, it's been too long. I can't tell. But yeah, but there's like the lactose thing was also something for a long time. A lot of people would put it in their beer, but not say it was there.
Okay.
So I think that's a lot of like there's a lot of places like I've heard that thing place like Hop Butcher or something, they put lactose in all their double IPAs.
Really?
But it's not really on the label. And it's even something that it's weird because like we always have the issue where some of my old beers, I forget which ones, like that were like in the Cirrus style. There's no on Untapped. There's actually no oat cream category. It's just like IPA and milkshake. So then it's always like, where do we put this? Because I called it like it's an other half thing. The other half define the style is saying like oat cream because it's oats and there's lactose inside of it. But there's no but like there's on Untapped it's like some of my beers will say milkshake, but to me milkshake is
vanilla
with vanilla.
Yeah.
And then and then like but a lot of people just consider if I put lactose in like a little bit like a 5 gram 6 gram per liter lactose inside my inside my New England just to make it nice and creamy, then that's just a New England. I don't have to mention that it has lactose inside of it. So.
Unless is there some sort of obligation because of what do you call it?
Like people who are lactose intolerant.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like an allergen, like with having peanuts in the nut buster or something like that.
So like beer gets a bypass. You don't really have to say anything that has inside of it. I think that might have changed recently, but purely on some of the labels and stuff. Like start seeing the labels say everything in 2024, but historically you didn't have to say allergens, so you could really put anything in there. It's like the lobbyists from the big companies made it so that they could just write, they didn't have to write anything because then they could just like put anything they wanted inside their beers, right?
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like it's I guess if you don't have that's fair. The beer kind of gets around it. I just feel like the two things I've always seen that would mention on labels were lactose and nuts. Just because I guess, but then I don't know if you drink a beer with the word nut in their fucking name, then you kind of assume that there's nuts in that shit. This is super dope, man. Is there any sort of specific tasty notes that you want to mention? Like I'm getting lots of citrus in this. It's a little bit kind of got that same. I don't know if it's astringency or like a pithy kind of bitterness going on.
Yeah, there's a bit of that that'll like most of our beers. Once you start getting that level of haze, I think it just naturally comes with it. Right. But it's our hop selection for the Eldorado's super pineapple forward. So you get this really, really nice like pineapple back notes, and then the superdelic, which is just like this over the top fruity banana-y like tropical thing, kind of just like goes and hits that just covers the whole flavor of the Eldorado. So like the Eldorado is just really nice as a back note thing.
Yeah, that's so Eldorado is typically like in my mind, it's always like a dank citrus type of thing going on. Is that
Yeah.
Sure.
Eldorado, I think, is another one of those. And tell me if you disagree here, but Eldorado, I feel like, is another one of those ones that has a huge variance in its flavor profile.
Yeah, because like when we went to Select in 2021, it was like I was so underwhelmed when I left the table because they give you like a few selections, like I guess we'll just take this one. And then when we went back and got our selection in 22, it was like that was the one that I left going like that's the one I'm the happiest about getting once I get it. So and like it's not like Citra and stuff. It's not something that you like people kind of know about it. You put it on the label, it's okay, but it's not gonna be the thing that necessarily moves the needle. But like the people that really like brewing with it love brewing with it. Like I know that like in your neighborhood you have like the boys from Blood Brothers that just have like their Blood Light, I think is that, right? It's like Eldorado something, but it's like that Eldorado is critical for that beer. But if the Eldorado is not the one that'll sell, even though it might be the one that's the most important, right? Like even if it gives you that big flavor, it's the one that's the pineapple that gives you that stuff. It might be the word that gets, I'll make it up, if it's Eldorado Mosaic, the Mosaic's the ones that's selling the can, but Eldorado making the beer.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. It's one of those ones that if it's one of those ones that is like naming the beer, naming the hop in the beer, like your Singularity or with anyone else's single hop series or whatnot, Eldorado is not going to be one that that people are lining up for. But if I'm understanding you right, it seems like Eldorado can be like a pretty critical hop in a lot of beers for certain flavor combinations. Is that right?
Yeah, but it's just because like I think there's not that many hops that the list is getting bigger that can actually stand alone. But like one of the last beers I did, the Singularity before the Citra was Nectaron, and to me Nectaron needed another hop. Obviously Citra, like across the board, like Citra just works with every single one of these. It's like a foundational hops that you could just build the rest of the flavor profile across. So Citra's the weird one that it could be alone and it's great, but you could also just have that one with the other one and it's going to elevate the flavor of the other one by far. So so a lot of these, like I could have made this beer with Citra Superdelic, but I wouldn't have necessarily done 100% Superdelic. It would have been okay. Like some of these hops need to have just that other hop there that just like punches them up a little bit. So and I think that's like where, because like some of the people that I got a lot of ideas about making single hop beers from like looking at what Other Half does, and then you go like Other Half made 100% cashmere, that hop must be amazing, and then you try to make a 100% cashmere hop beer and it's like this is just
not
average at best. It's definitely not like I'm not getting what they're getting. But then you throw cashmere into the mix with one or two other hops and you're like, oh, this has this really nice creaminess that I never get from the other hop combos. So there's always got these interesting parts inside of them. But I think often it's like it's like because I've been brewing at this point, I guess probably for 13 years or something. Dang. And when I started doing it, it used to be just like everything but the kitchen sink kind of brewing, just like you throw anything inside of it, and like if you weren't at least putting 5 to 10 hops inside of something, it's just like you weren't trying. Like, you gotta do these things, and it's just like with time, it seems like at some point I've just like knocked off a lot of the other stuff and getting cleaner, less and less ingredients, less and less stuff. But then you do hit a critical point where like you're going like, I'm going to just bring it all the way down to one malt and one hop, which is like the smash style that kind of semi picked up a few years back. But that was just not good. Like I don't like. I think it's interesting for very niche enthusiasts, but not for somebody who just wanted to have a good beer. Yeah, like, oh, you should try this one. It's one malt and one hops. Like, yeah, is it good? Like, well, if you want to try, if you want to try crystal malts and Maris Otter, it's like, well, what if I don't? If I just want like even like so like even back in the when we started when I started doing everything at the brewery like in house, it's one of the reasons we put a two barrel pilot system in there, and I just never wanted to do a smash, even though all my brewers were pushing for it. I'm like, let's just develop a stable like malt bill for a line of beers that was Singularities, that we would just single dry hop stuff, and like Singularities are now upticked to like larger batches, but they used to just be 2-barrel batches, that because like a 2-barrel batch I could put one bag of hops inside of it, so it was just like it was sized for I take like a 5 kilo bag, throw it into that beer, and that's the single hop beer. And we saw very quickly that some of these things, well, unfortunately scaling doesn't always give you the identical result, where like some stuff that we tried in small scale was banging. Like I did like 100% Idaho gem. Like this thing is insane. Then you scale it up and it just doesn't translate as much. But like or just like it's kind of that Sabro effect, where the first time you try Sabro, you're like, this thing is insane. And then like 3 beers after, you're like, okay, I've had enough of this Sabro stuff. I don't really care for it.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Funnily enough, you mentioned I went to Buffalo last Friday, and I went to a bottle shop, and I actually drank last weekend the All Nectaron Everything from Other Half, which was a 8.5%, I think, double IPA with all Nectaron, and it was solid. I don't know. I see what you're saying with these hops. I'm curious to know what about the specific, like, what are the characteristics that you would say from you personally that say this hop needs a support act type of thing, or it can carry its own? Is there sort of things that you look for?
I think that, like, I mean, not knowing exactly what Other Half is doing, but there's a chance that what they're doing is what we were talking at the start of the podcast, like why the Singularity Citra that I just released. To me, it's my favorite Singularity Citra that I've done so far, but it's the first one I've done with, like, I think it's 3 lots of Citra inside of it.
Okay.
So you can do this. So it's something that I haven't played around with as much. Like going like Nectaron could have been like, if I got 3 different lots of Nectaron and blended them together, I could have probably gotten a better beer than just getting a singular lot. So it's like you could get away with this other version of doing these things where it is a single hop, but you're just blending, like in a way, three different flavors inside of them, and then you get with something that's going to be a little bit better, because it just kind of removes a little. It'll like help certain sides of it. It'll help like this fruity side might punch up, but then some of these hops, like you get some Nectaron where it is super stanky. It's super like sweaty, armpity, like very intense. Where then you could get another one that's like a little bit fruity but underwhelming, but blend them both together, then suddenly you have something that's really going to hit. The same thing that you would do with like a really sweaty Nectaron. You wouldn't necessarily put it with a sweaty Mosaic that's just doubling down that way, or like a sweaty Columbus. You would go with maybe a Simcoe or a Citra. So you can like find ways to combine a single like hop, I guess, but it like, so it is one varietal but with 2 different like lots, and get something that would work a little bit better. But like at our size, if I'm ordering Nectaron, I'm getting a case of Nectaron, and then I'm like I'll get the same lot. So when I did a Singularity Nectaron on that, it's only one lot that's going inside of it.
Okay.
So I think like that could be where the little bit of difference is, where like people like Other Half might have figured exactly what I'm saying out 5 years ago. And that's why they're making better beers than that now.
I don't want to speak out of turn here, but yes, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think other half do their thing and they're fantastic. One thing I learned, and this is complete credit to you and all of your colleagues in your league of brewers, is that every time I've been out of the country, which is literally just driving over the border in the last year, because that was the first time we went since the pandemic, since we moved and shit, but everything I've had overseas is in America. There's hardly anything that I would say compete with Ontario and Quebec, and I'm not saying that in like lightly. Like I went to some of the best breweries in all the way from New York State down to Florida, like driving, and bro, we are fucking killing it in Canada. Quebec and Ontario are so fucking good, and I'm gonna be honest, I would take a BreWskey over 98% of stuff in the States, and maybe because I don't know how much you're getting. Are you getting a lot of stuff from the States lately? Like, are people bringing? Are you traveling like you used to with Zach? No,
Not so much. Like I guess very rarely some stuff,
okay,
but not so much. Like it would be me going to the States and grabbing a few cans and stuff.
gotcha.
But yeah, like it's not. I completely understand what you mean by that. Like but it depends on which style that you're talking about. Like there's some yes and some no.
I think
But
that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
but like I do think that there has been at least I know from from my end is like a lot of just we're definitely pushing to try to be as like every beer as good as we can make them, and like I think that's what a lot like every brewer that we talk to, we're quite open with each other. We talk to each other a lot, and we're trying to we share with like everybody does it different, right? So it's just like there's a problem, then like you just text somebody and like you start talking to them, and like everybody's just super interested. We're like me. I'm stuck in my own little world. I have people I talk to at the brewery, but it's always interesting to then just talk to somebody else at another brewery that has their own sets of problems and just see what the hell are they doing. That's so much different. And there's a big push and a big drive to just be the best and help each other along to become the best. And I think like obviously the beer industry is like that everywhere as much as I can tell, but there might be also something to like this slightly more, I think it's a little bit more competitive, the market here, but it's like healthy competitive. But in the Quebec market, you just I don't think you get anything for free. You have to really really push to get it, because it's not like we've seen kind of what's happening with the industry right now. It's like you better be doing the best you can make right now because if you're not really pushing and you're not striving to just get better every day, like every day I get up is just like, how can we just make something that's better? Because you have like the best people are the people that are unsatisfied with their stuff, and I think most people that are brewing the products that you're talking about are probably not satisfied with what they're outputting.
Yeah,
I think that was really well said. Nate, go for it.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it's certainly one of those consumer climates where you really can't afford to to take any consumer for granted, and like in one of these things where, like you say, you kind of have to be doing the absolute best you can, because it's one of those things where if something that ends up kind of mid is making people kind of shrug and walk away to the next one, like that's going to be more impactful now than it's been at any point in the last 5 to 10 years or further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with like all of us are kind of on shelves more or less together, right? And like there's not more consumers. There seems to be the same amount of consumers that are willing to drink less. So
fuck, that's so depressing when you put it like that.
in some ways, but like it's hard to tell where it's going, right? Like it's a big continuous talk amongst ourselves about what we're doing. One of the things that we decided, even when like 2 years ago when we were starting to build a new space, was that what we opted for was variety over quantity. because we just thought that was a better way to grow. So as we like what we're pushing towards is like people are going to be wanting to have more different kinds of our stuff than volumes of our stuff. So it's like it's an inefficient way to grow because like what you would want, what most brewers would do in terms of growth is let's put 4 batch size tanks, 6 batch size tanks, like just grow like, in terms of single batch units. So like what we did was just grow in single batch units. So we just kind of threw everything as one size so that like what we're going to be able to offer in the through the course of the next year is going to be just more different kinds of beers, more than just like you have a lot of this one. And that's kind of what we see the market's kind of been shifting towards there. But like the difference was that if you'd asked me 2 years ago, we could have probably doubled the size and doubled the amount of tanks. Thankfully, we didn't double the size; we just doubled the amount.
Right. So you're saying more like you've gone for breadth rather than depth. So like less of more as opposed to more of less. And I feel like if that's correct, yeah.
We exactly, and like it's because we just to be able to give like more options and more things, and also we just always had issues keeping our board filled up during the summer. So if we could give more varieties that way,
it makes sense.
And we're like, we're not a brewery and like an industrial brewery. We're like a craft artisanal brewery, so we're more of a kitchen. So there's a lot of limitations on what we can do in growth in that size. Yeah. But like, so because we can't use a distributor, we can't sell kegs to bars. There's a lot of things that we can't really do. So it limits how much we can grow. But I think that we were lucky that we had those limits because we may have taken different ideas and gone down different paths if we were like industrial, because we would have thought like, okay, how can we make this as big as we can? And thankfully we weren't really allowed to, especially since like we're in a historic building. There's only so much output and input that we can grab. There's only so much stuff that we can do inside the space. That made it so that we decided to grow in a different method, and now we're happy with that growth because it wasn't like an outrageous growth. Because like a lot of breweries that kind of are suffering now was like a COVID growth, but
which is like a fake growth there in the end, unfortunately, a misleading growth. Yeah,
it's like one of these weird growths, and like now that like we didn't push towards there, and it's for the better in our case. So
that makes sense.
And is the reason that you can't sell kegs to bars like purely just because you're also a kitchen?
It's because we are a brew pub.
Yeah.
So I hate these stupid rules. It's fucking dumb, man.
They have weird rules, but like thankfully what they did is like because COVID actually allowed us to make it illegal for us to sell to depths.
To can.
Before then,
okay.
we were able to can before. We were canning before the rule change, but then it made it illegal for brew pubs to sell cans. But they were just not allowed to use a third-party distributor. So like
you gotta go direct.
Yeah, so we have to go direct, and then we can't sell it to people that are gonna sell. Like we can't sell it to restaurants for some reason, like restaurants or bars, so they can't then use our products to sell it out. So it's maybe those things will change. Maybe they'll unify the permit at some point. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see what necessarily happens. But no matter what, it's like those markets are getting complicated anyway, right? If you're starting to go like attacking the restaurants, Montreal restaurants or Quebec restaurants have always had the Boreal, like Saint-Ambroise, Labatt, and Molson problems where they just come in and buy them. And then you could get a few taps, but then like that market is just getting oversaturated anyway with a lot of microbreweries trying to attack it. It's like as the demand for beer is going down, like every market's just getting oversaturated.
That was the one thing, to be honest, that I always appreciated about Ontario was it was closer to the States. You know, like if you go to Vermont, like I dare you to try and find a place that only has shit beer. Like everywhere in Vermont has incredible craft beer. in Ontario, it's not quite that, but it's significantly above Quebec. Like, it was really hard going out for dinner or whatever in Quebec because it was like the exact problem you're talking about. I hated that about it. One thing I did enjoy before I left, I didn't know that was because of the change about selling to depths. I think that was awesome because I feel like there was a handful of breweries, you guys, Meso, and a few others that didn't have this stuff in depths, and then all of a sudden, even if I didn't have a car there, it was like harder to get down. And if I was able to go up the street to Vitumbier or whatever, I was able to get BreWskey finally. I was like, yo, this is amazing, just to get brew juice from up the street. Like, that was a really cool thing, and I felt like probably for you guys, I would hope that it would have been like people would have felt like I did, where you, as a consumer, it's like, oh man, like, this is what a treat. Like, I don't, whether it's like getting from the, you'd be able to get your BreWskey fix without going down. Then when you go down to the brewery, you're gonna pick up even more. You're gonna eat some food because your food's amazing and have a bunch of beers on tap. So it's like you're able to get the fix in the meantime, and then and keeps you front of mind for consumers. Where if you can only get the products directly from the brewery, it makes it a little tougher, I think, to sort of. You know what I mean? Well, I appreciated that.
For us, it helped because it just because the winter months, the brewery size really built for draft summers. That's
patio is.
So we get super slammed during the summers. Yeah. So then what was happening anyways? We were getting to the winter times and we're just reducing because we were just forced to only sell out our door initially. It wasn't a choice or anything, where it was just that was the only method. So we were just getting stuck with beers and it was just not working as well. And then just the second they were able to open up those doors, we were just able to get those extra cases out that just allowed us to just keep going a little bit easier that way. But why our stuff and frankly everybody's stuff is available a little bit everywhere else is just because of the general slowdown. I don't think if it's not a choice to necessarily be in all the places that a lot of the places are. For us, it's just a marginal part of our business is can sales. It's what allows us to keep fresh product. It's the only thing it is. Because that's the only reason, because in many ways I could have just had a 5-barrel brewery and been fine. We were just being asked continuously for products to go. So we decided to scale it up, and so we made it a little bit bigger in that sense, because the laws for cans actually changed when we were building the tap room. Because initially, when in 2018 when we were building the tap room, the laws changed from you could only do growlers to you can now actually can and sell cans out your door. So we changed the size of the brew kit while we were ordering it to just get a little bit more scale inside of it, just in case. So we were able to scale that stuff up and plan for it to get something a little bit better in that way. But the depths was never okay. It took a while it took COVID, because if it wasn't for COVID, we would never have been able to pull out that extra set of sales.
Right.
But so for us, if that part disappears, in many ways, it's easier for me.
Yeah. I was gonna say less work.
Our volume, it's a brew pub that sells cans, and it's something that we sometimes have to come to terms with internally. Is that it's the cans is just always meant to be just a way to have somebody leave with some product and be happy, more than for us business. It's going into depths and doing all that stuff is really not. It's something that we do a very marginal amount. We're in 20 depths and they get 1 case of each product. It's not a huge part of our sales. It's really people coming in, getting draft.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. It's I didn't realize that it was a COVID thing, because over here they had the thing where you had LCBO or you had the beer store, which were difficult, and then you had your own stuff, and then you're allowed to open independent bottle stores, basically like the specialty beer stores in Quebec.
But that was a COVID thing.
That was a COVID thing here too.
Because that every restaurant became a specialty beer store.
Exactly. I get my shit from my favorite cafe here. Has the best curated. He goes to Third Moon and Badlands every single week. It's the best curated fridge I think in the province, arguably, and But he has to go and fucking do it because Third Moon don't distribute. Then they'd be like, yo, you want to come get it? Badlands, fucking come get it, you know? Completely makes sense, but he does it because the owner loves it, and that's what I think makes it like special. Whereas Quebec, it's like this integrated system. There's a ton of distributors. There's basically no distributors here, or very few.
Well, Ontario, you guys are the brewers are allowed to ship out beers via just like
Correct. It's the greatest thing ever.
Like,
yeah,
it's great for the breweries, but like because that's the continuous argument in Quebec of like brewers want to be able to do it, but it's tough because what do you do with all the depths? What do you do with all those places that kind of opened up that are? Is it just to accept that it's a dying industry and we should just get clear of that stuff and just allow brewers to go right too? Maybe I don't know. Like,
do you know what?
There's no proper way, so we're not like it doesn't affect us, so we don't really care. But I could understand that, like, because I don't even know if we would be allowed to send beer out if they made it legal anyway.
Well, why wouldn't you if they did? Oh, you went sideways right there. What happened?
Well,
he might have cut. You might have cut out.
Yeah, he might have cut out. Well, I think that, if he comes back on, he can speak to this. But I would suspect, like, just because it doesn't seem like anything is really straightforward, and if and when you're also a brew pub, it seems like that limits basically everything that you're able to do, you know. That you know, if you're not allowed to use a distributor, if you're not allowed to sell kegs to restaurants and whatnot, like, it wouldn't surprise me if that's also if say they were to roll that out and then all of a sudden, like, okay, breweries can ship direct to consumers, like, if but it wouldn't be all that surprising considering the current regulations if they were also like, oh, but not if you're a brew pub. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it makes sense, but
I know what you mean.
But like, it probably would have something like that.
They would definitely do them like that, which is fucked. We can. He's okay. He'll call back in a sec, I guess. I was going to say one thing that always pissed me off. For example, was say you went to the Judiciel brew pub on Laurier. Yeah. You couldn't buy. Now you can because of the same rules that Derrick's talking about. But like, you would have to go. I'd go there for a bunch of pours. You know, you have a bunch of beers, and I'm like, oh, I'd love a 6-pack, and then you're like, oh, but go to that dépanneur down the street. Luckily, Vertumbier literally opened across the street, so it's fine. But it was just like it's ridiculous. I'm sure they couldn't do that.
Like, I'm sure they would have loved to have just be able to sell their stuff out their own doors.
Of course, and it would be cheaper, obviously, right? Yeah. Like, to be able to do that, but then. It was because they didn't package from that space. They packaged elsewhere. So if you went to, say, Four Origins, they packaged in their space. They have a brewpub license because then you could order food to come to get delivered there. So they don't have a kitchen. Whereas Judiciel have a kitchen, and that was what fucked them. It's the Tide House license, I believe. And even though they're making it in St. Jerome and it's Péchés made there, whatever the fuck, they can't do it because they weren't packaging there. And that was the ridiculousness. But COVID changed that law that allowed them to do it. So I guess because it's the same business or whatever, they were able to bring their own product from St. Jerome to the Laurier brew pub and be able to sell the cans and bottles to go from there. So It was like, it was just these, both areas, both provinces were equally silly. There we go. We got you.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good, man. You're fine.
My phone died.
No problems. We were just bitching about, I was just saying, the Judiciel, like the same kind of rule that they weren't able to do it until COVID changed as well. I was going to say, okay, the shipping thing, I think that was a really interesting point. This is how I feel about it. In Montreal, as I lived there for 10 years to the day, and I never had a car. I had Commune Auto or whatever, or I used Uber mostly, but it made getting around difficult. If I wanted BreWskey, I thought it was dope to be able to go. I was on just off Park Avenue, so I was able to walk up Park because there's a Vertu there, or I could walk up to Laurier, the one near Judiciel, and grab some stuff. So if I was able to get BreWskey from there, that was amazing for me, and that was what I did. I also went to La Canette because my friend Kevin owns that in Saint-Hubert, which is a bit further, but it's the homie, so I could go support him, and he always got the good stuff. Now, if, as we were talking about earlier, I wanted Le Ketch, and Le Ketch have very limited distribution, and maybe there's a few places in Montreal that got it, but not very much. I would have loved to be able to order that directly and have that shipped, like sort of. So I don't think it would inherently ruin the depanneur business, because there's two sides to it, right? Like, if their distro isn't wide enough for me to access it, then I could just order directly. But then here in Ontario, right, I have a car now, but everything that it's like what I want is like an hour away. So I've got two choices. I could drive an hour to go get stuff up to Third Moon or up to Badlands or whatever, or I can go to my local cafe who goes there anyway, and I could pay a slight premium, which is like $1 to $2 a can, and I don't have to buy a 4-pack, because Badlands sells them in 12s or 24s, and Third Moon sells everything in 4-packs, but I typically don't want 4 of anything. 2 is plenty. So I could go and pay an extra $1 or $2, and that's still going to be cheaper than shipping and being forced to buy a 4-pack, and I'm supporting a local business, and I'll get a fire coffee to go as well. And it's like a beautiful ecosystem, and I go there every Thursday because I know that every Thursday he goes and picks up the new stuff. So it's not letting the stores die. And then if there's somewhere else that he doesn't stock, say he gets most of this good stuff though, like all the breweries that I want. But say if he doesn't, that counterpart doesn't deliver very quickly. So if I really want it, I could just order from Counterpart instead. And I was like, cool, let me just do a fucking order. It's no problem. And it works out beautiful. I did an order from Wood Brothers this week because he gets Wood Brothers, but he doesn't always get it super fresh. So I was like, cool, let me just do a little order. So I feel like there's a nice balance as a consumer that's more. I feel like I've got more choices now. And I utilize all of those choices. So I don't think it would kill the depanneurs. I think that it would be like there'd be some breweries who might choose not to distribute and be cool. So now I order from them, but I still go to the dep to pick up all the other stuff I want. And I feel like the deps don't charge. I think you're allowed to sell to the deps at wholesale. Is that correct? Or do you sell them at...
They get a reduced price. Because...
Okay, so here they don't. They have to buy at retail.
Because the whole thing is like you kind of choose the value in which you want your beer to be displayed at, okay. Right? So like, at least for us, like we'll tell them we'll go in and we'll go like we want this beer to be at, and we'll get like if we hear that they're selling it for more than we actually accept, and we'll like talk to them and make them bring it down to what we accepted on. Okay. So it's just because it's just a visibility thing. We don't necessarily want people taking, because at some point we used to have people that were coming buying cases of brew juice, and then they were selling them in their store for like $11, and then we'd have like people come to us and go, hey, like I'm really not happy that I had to buy your beer for $11. I'm like, you should never have to pay for a brew juice. And so it's something that we like, that we're careful of, and we look at what like there's certain margins that the stores want to make, and then we like it ends up being they make $1 more, like, or the beer costs about $1 more per unit if you go to a store, maybe $1
then directly
than if you go to directly.
And that's
we are
the
like
price
one of
pay.
these, but we're also we're in the exceptions, I guess. I looked at what Buck Canada did, and they're like, they sell by units. And I'm like, I can't do something much different than what one of the best breweries in the world does. So I may as well just like sell by units and not sell 4-packs. And it's not like, because again, it's like I could either sell volumes by 4-packing, or we could just allow the person to leave with like 10 different cans, and they could just grab single units. So it's like it's a decision that like sometimes like I think I'm the only one out of the partners that fights with going, we should sell 4-packs because I want to make more beer.
Right.
but for the consumer, it's actually better to just
my god.
Craig and I talk about this all the fucking time, and like we greatly appreciate the decision to sell by unit, and like both of us like definitely end up buying more at places where we can buy by unit than if we're buying by 4-pack. It's every a thing time. Of if every single time we'll end up buying more. It's exactly what you say. And like in ones where you can buy singles, will almost certainly end up walking away with like 8 to 12 of something. Whereas if it's a place where we're buying 4-packs, like I'm really doing math in my head of being like, okay, like wait, like which of these, like is Craig going to want to split a 4-pack with me, with me on? And I always end up buying less.
The logger.
I always end
well,
up.
I take the 4 of the
always
crispy.
end up buying less.
Yeah.
Every time. And it was like, do you know what's really funny? Actually, I'm glad you sort of brought this up. I was on Reddit an hour before the podcast because someone commented on the Toronto craft beer subreddit, and they were like, "Hey, I've got a friend going to Other Half in Buffalo, and he's going to get some stuff for me, but on their website it's all 4-packs. What the fuck?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, bro, it's all in the States. Everything in the States is 4-packs. It's so annoying." There was like tens of comments just bitching about it, and I was telling him what to do because I used to always go to the States for a weekend, but now I have Nexus. I can go across the bridge in 45 seconds. It's fucking insane. And I don't spend the night really ever. So that restricts how much I can bring back. And if I can only get a case, say, between Tiff and I, that's not going to ruin everything, I don't want 6 beers of 4 of them. I want 24 different beers. And like I've had to figure out how to do that, and it's fucking annoying, bro. And but at the same token, I'm a business owner, so I understand the economics of it and why you would want the 4-packs. It's just like now it's like, all right, Nate and I just did an order from Burial in North Carolina, which was one of my favorite breweries that I discovered last year because they shipped to New York State. So I was like, hey, Nate, you want to split it? I know you might not know much about these guys, but you down? He's like, yep, cool, whatever. And we figured it out. We just split everything. Nate went to Montreal. He went to BreWskey, but we were doing the pod. So he went to Meso, only do 4-packs. Cool, you want to split? Sweet. So we split a bunch of 4-packs. So it's like, luckily we have each other to split the 4-packs, and I'm completely satisfied to get 2 of anything. But when it comes to 4 of anything, it becomes a little tough, and I end up letting him like die or some shit like that. And it's, yeah, I appreciate it. So I see where you're coming from.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's just like from us, I think we're like passionately for it, because then I end up going, now I have, instead of going to Other Half, I didn't go to any, I went to 2 breweries on Friday last week, didn't buy a single thing, just bought, pause. I didn't buy anything to go. I went to a bottle shop called Brewed and Bottled in Lewiston, where my Connect Point address is, and they sell singles. And the guy he follows me, so he put some stuff aside. They got a bunch of Trillium in, and they had all the Other Half beers for the 10th anniversary. So I was like, cool, can put some of these aside for me. And I grabbed some even more, even though he put 2 4-packs aside. I was like, fuck it, I'm Nexus, they don't really ask anymore. And I went and grabbed some more. So Nate was correct. Like we spent more money in the end on more beers, but not at the brewery. We went to the dep and paid that. You know what I'm saying? So it's an interesting thing to balance for people, and every consumer is different. You can't please everybody, so it's what do you do? Yeah. You know, you're in a position, man.
Stuff you have. Like if you have a lot of selection, then it's better.
Yeah.
You guys usually have a decent amount, though. I mean, like right now, there's 9 different beers that you got me, and Nate. So like that's fucking solid. Like if I went there
for what's packaged, like that's a pretty big selection, I would say.
I agree.
Yeah. For like at this time of year, then you hit like that's the whole question we're going to be in during the summer period. But it is true when you put it that way, because it is something that I think about when I do go out and I have beers, and I'm like, I want to bring something home. And nowadays, there's almost nothing I want to bring home as a 4-pack. Like it's almost.
Except the Crispies. You mentioned lagers. I know you were joking, but
yeah, sure, Crispy.
I would take a 4 of Crispies.
They better be good.
They better be fire.
Because like Crispies, they get a lot of leeway for just being okay. So like we'll just take these back, but it's like they're still craft Crispies, so they can come at a premium anyway. But but it like a lot of the times, like I'll have like what you guys have in cans, and I'll try pours of them, and if they're not amazing, then I'm not bringing them. I'm not going to buy a 4-pack of them. So that's very true.
So you see both sides, I guess, then, because you're obviously a consumer as well. So it's like,
of course,
yeah, it's and I love the way that like your fridge, like in the annex, which we should talk about in a sec, but like the way that you got the fridge now that's like consumer available to, like before it was behind the counter downstairs in the tap room, and now upstairs, you know, you can go in there and fill up your, you know, get the little 12-pack or 24-pack case, fill that bad boy up, and it's like yeah, I feel like it's more. I don't know. I think it's like just a better solution, and more times people might just be like, say they get 8, and you're like, ah, because I know when I came to saw you, there was like you had the 12s, which I don't see very often. And then if I was a consumer and I've filled up 7, I'd be like, let me just fill this up. What am I doing?
Yeah,
like they're gonna fall everywhere in a car. Might as well. And all of a sudden, if someone could have got 1 4-pack, or they're getting a full 12-pack of different beers. And maybe if you don't have 12 different SKUs, then it'd be like, let me get 2 of those smoothies. That sounds great. 2 of this haze. I love this hop combo. So it's like it's a tough thing, and I guess at the end of the day, there's no right answer. And maybe there's consumers who want both. I haven't spoken to people who only want 4-packs, but it seems,
we giving a discount. Like what we do now is like $1 discount on a 4-pack. So like,
see, that's smart.
We had to like at some point we had to like decide what we wanted to do, and it was like everybody was selling 4-packs at a certain price, and we were selling unit cans at the same price as 4-packs. So now what we're like our 4-packs are cheaper than other people's. Like, let's say if you're pricing us towards, because it's just like the market price, meso, bucket, whatever the hell you want. Like, so our 4-packs are cheaper than theirs, but our single can units are now just 25 cents more expensive.
Perfect.
So it's like we're like right in the mid range. Like if we'll get 20 cents more or something per can than it's a 4-pack. So that way it's like choose if you want a 4-pack, it's cheap. It's like it's cheaper than what you get other places, but you could also take the single can and just have that variety option be your choice at that point.
Yeah. I like that. That was exactly what I had in my head when you were describing it. I was like, well, you've got the 25 cents, and then you'd be like, well, if you get 4 of them, you're actually going to get that off. It's smart, man. And that one thing I brought it up seriously like 15 times on the pod, but the first time I ever saw it was Burlington Beer Co. They had all 4-packs, and then they had a thing where they have a surcharge of $2, so then 50 cents a can, to do a mixed 4-pack. And it's usually, in my head, I always remember $14 4-packs and $16 US mixed packs. And I'm like, that's the same concept that I'm like, well, what? There's got to be at least 4 beers that you're going to want to bring home, and they always had a bunch. So that's the same concept of going to a dep, like might be a touch more expensive, or going to the store here. And I feel like most consumers would be completely happy to do that, because you want the store to still be around, so you want to make sure that they're getting their money. And then you want the brewery to be supported, which obviously they've got the products, they've already paid for it. So it's like a cool ecosystem. And I imagine that the thoughtful craft beer consumer would be somewhat aware of that and sort of lean into that to keep that sort of thing going. It's
definitely,
particularly in these times.
Yeah.
Are you about to say next beer,
All
Nate?
right. Yeah, we're an hour and a half in. We've only done 2 beers. We need to keep this train moving.
Yeah. Derek, what are we doing, sir?
I really don't care. Is there something you want to try?
Well, the third one that we have here, I actually don't know what it is. The New Grounds is that's the one that we all have. Otherwise, we have a series of different things. We have 3 of the same smoothies, and we each have sort of another series of stuff that are all completely different, so then we could have different beers. So,
well, is there something you guys are interested in trying?
Yeah.
You want to go smoothies? You want
to? Should we break it up?
You know what? We've been talking about Nelson a lot. I kind of feel like I want to get into Emperor Nel.
Cool.
Let's go. Oh, that's why it's called that. I didn't even look at it. Emperor Nel from Nelson. You don't have that one though, Derek, right? Or you do?
I have it.
Oh, you do? Okay. I didn't realize we all did.
I found it in my fridge.
Okay.
Let's do that then.
Hells yeah. So 7.2% Nelson and Hopkeef Nelson.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking about this at length just before. Is this a similar situation as far as like different lots from different like what's the vibes with the Nelson there?
That one is definitely 2 different lots of Nelson. So it's Nelson from it's kind of 2 communes in New Zealand. One of them is Hop Revolution. The other one is NZ hops.
Okay.
So they're both just 2 different ones. And so that's like a blend of the 2 ones that we have. And then Keef is freestyle.
Ah, okay. Oof. Hell yeah! This smells completely different to the others. It's like I feel like is it more like earthy, or am I tripping out?
Got a little bit of more earth. Like I find that the Kifos comes off kind of when it's really really fresh. It's super resiny and really intense.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it mellows away, it's just like more aromatically earthy.
Okay.
But yeah, like I kind of just associate everything coming out of New Zealand as being
No.
like kind of grassy and earthy and yeah. But
Okay.
like it's very specific kind of earth. It also has it always has like some sort of grit to it, almost like kind of similar to that what the first Citra beer that we had, but it has always like you can almost chew on it. That you can't see from other places.
That makes
So
sense.
so can you tell us, hop keef is that really just like a different specific lot, or is that like a different kind of hop product?
So it's something that only Freestyle makes. So
Okay.
I I don't exactly know what it is. So it's a flowable. It comes in a little bottle. So
Oh, I
it's
thought it would be a powder, like keef, like weed keef. Isn't it like the shake at the bottom or something?
back in the like a while like a few years ago, what you would be able to buy was something called like just was it was never called key. It was I call it hash. So it's like the mill, like the mill that was making the pellets would just accumulate all the resin,
And they
like
just
what
like a
like
grinder.
what you would make with hash, and then they would just sell that as hop hash. But this keef is it comes in I'm not sure if it's emulsified in alcohol or something, but it's a liquid. So it's like it's just a flowable that you put. In this case, like we put it just directly into our bright tanks, so it's added really really at the end.
Oh, okay.
Versus the other stuff is just like pellets. So all the stuff from well anything that's coming out of New Zealand will just be pellets, and then they have this keef, where like on the other end, ever since well, there's Crosby hops and YCH
Okay.
that do cryo of this stuff, but I haven't had it yet.
Right.
Because like they have the processes to do those, but like the only people that do the flowable keef stuff, and keef is really one of the most interesting new products there is. I'd say like out of the new kind of interesting hop things that are around, keef is really the best thing so far because like it's the one
Okay.
that's like a direct aromatic impact, flavor impact, and everything. It's really really cool because it just gives you just really nice fresh hop stuff, and you're getting a little vial of I think it's 275 milliliters compensates for a 5 kilo bag. So it's like a really
Holy
just a
shit.
small thing. And when we dry hop with 5 kilos, you're like anticipating 50 liters of loss about versus this other stuff you're just putting it in there and you have no loss. It goes straight into the product. So
Damn.
it's really really nice, and it's like that's like a lot of the future of hop products is kind of these new things where like I don't think like I've tried to do 100% hop keef. I didn't like it so much. It started off strong and then it like falls off a cliff where like but you need some of this old pellet stuff, but it just together you're like just looking at just this flavor impact that
That's
you would have a hard time getting just with the pellets, and then you're
Right.
just getting a lot of easier transportation and easier storability too.
makes complete sense. I'm excited.
And is
First
it
of all, cheers.
and is it oh sorry, yeah, cheers.
It's okay. Cheers, boys. Oh hell yeah! So the interesting thing about this one, the nose is like not reflective of the taste. So it's like less aromatic. Is that because of the keef? Is it less aromatic as a whole, or am I?
The keef is usually fairly aromatic, but it's just the the Nelsons I had were okay. Like they weren't just
Okay.
these super aromatic flavored diesel punches. They were just kind of fruity, kind of there. It's like so they we based them on dry hop tests where like the flavor was really nice, but like sometimes it's always a discussion on our end of like you can at like sometimes you could get stuff that's massively aromatics aromatic. But sometimes if you try to push the aromatics too far, then you're gonna just start ruining the flavor a little bit. Where like you're just like, yes, we have this nice big punch of aroma, but then the flavor just gets impacted with all this harshness and all these other things because we were able to push and like pull the lever on the aromatics, but it kind of comes to the deficit of the other one. So that's always something that we try to be careful on. We're like, we it's a lot of these things like they go by taste. So we go like our processes are either rouse the tank, which means like mix the tank that has all the hops inside of it, or not. So in the morning after the dry hop, we go taste it. We go, does this tank need a rouse? And we taste it and we go like, you know what, like the flavor is really good and we may mask it, but the aroma is a little bit light. So you just decide. And in this case, we like, let's just like, we like the flavor enough. Let's not wreck the flavor to get the aroma. Because what happens a lot of the times, like aroma is, you get aroma for like 2 sips. And then it kind of that because your face is inside of it, right? So like you kind of get you get the aroma at the beginning, you get a nice little sip or two, and then that aroma kind of goes away, and what you're left with is just like the taste of the liquid a lot more than aroma. And if you're gonna crack a second one right after that, then all you should really be pushing for is like, how is this liquid tasting, not necessarily how's it smelling. But everybody always pushes that smell. It's like I look at the smell of IPA, like I look at like the thickness of like a smoothie, where it's like it's a talking point, but it shouldn't be the critical factor on like, is this a good product or not.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it all like that. Like this is great, man. The body on this is disgusting. Like it's crazy. I feel like that's one of the like signature features of a BreWskey beer. Like your body, like whatever you're doing, you're a wizard with the like. And even Nick, you were saying with some of the other ones where you dial back the oats and stuff earlier. And usually
we're always insane oats though. Like
heavy
every
oats.
time we do collaborations, they're like, how much? Which are you doing? Like, like 30-35%. Like, holy shit. Okay, like we always do.
That's wild. Gotcha. Okay, so you really ramp it up, but the body is crazy. I feel like it's more subtle as far as the Nelson punch. Like I'm still getting that white grape, and a bunch of tropical notes. Like it's there. I feel like it's like, at least compared to the last two, it's a little more subtle. And it's got some like that sort of nice bitterness in there, like you said. That's a bit of another hallmark of what you're doing. What else are you guys getting in this? As far as like tasting notes, yeah. Nate, give it a little sip. Stare at us while you're telling us what you think, buddy. There you go. No, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely do get the white grape part, but it's got more depth to it than that. I'm getting quite a bit of citrus. Like there's definitely some there's definitely some grapefruit pith in there that I'm getting as well, and like juicy grapefruit flesh too.
Yep. Definitely.
Maybe
that's
what's
the bitterness
standing out to me.
Yeah, it's that pithy bitterness.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Let me note that down. That's exactly what that is. Are we missing anything, Derrick?
Not so much. Like that's like the pithy bitterness is something I'm trying to reduce more and more inside of the beers. Like it is something that like a very like I guess BreWskey flavor that was there, but I kind of modified my brew kettle maybe 3 weeks ago. Just because I think it was like a physical problem that I was getting too much pullover of hops into the fermenting beer. Where like now it's kind of just like the whole idea is like I have a bigger baffle, so I'm getting much cleaner wort into there. So like that's something I've already seen on the new beers that are coming out. Not even for the anniversary, but the week after that don't have as much of that component. So again, it's just like it's allowing a better expression of the dry hops to shine through. Okay. But in this case, yeah, like the like that, there's always going to be that little bit of I almost call it like old West Coast IPA, grapefruit flavor that kind of just shows up. Like it is just like a little bit of that thing that kind of popped up.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, the Westy grapefruit. Yes. And sometimes when those flavors are in New England, I fucking love it. I love that mashup because Nate and I are West Coast fiends, so like it's really cool to see. And sometimes it almost throws you off because you're like, it's hard. Like you identify certain flavors with a beer that looks like this, and then when some of those other ones like appear, you're like, what the fuck is going on? But I love that you've done this. It's like this almost, now you mention it, is somewhat of an East meets West kind of thing. A touch.
Because I mean, there is always this bitterness inside of ours. Like I don't like full sweet bombs, so it's just there's always going to be like a little bit
nice
of that
little
stuff to counteract it. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, same. I think it's kind of cool. And it's like a calling card.
it's just because it's like I think like because I come from the IBU wars kind of IPA stuff. Like that's what I loved back then, was like finding like the My Keller 1000 IBU.
Did you try that?
I think I had tried to get it at some point.
I tried 3 times. Yeah, I never got it.
I just have never gotten it, but it was like 120, like 60-minute IPA from Dogfish Head was amazing. 90 was even better. Like 120 was okay, but I just really, really loved that high, intense bitterness.
Yeah, man.
And it just kind of it's hard to get rid of that. Like and if I would have any of those right now, I'd be like, this is way too intense. I don't want it. but there's like, you still want, like, when something doesn't have that balancing bitterness, like that little bit of something that just counteracts the sweetness that's inside of these things, then it's just not gonna allow it to hit on all cylinders in that sense.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. I think it's like a nice little change. And I don't know. I like that it's like something that you specifically do, because at the end of the day, like, you know, haze is kind of everywhere now, and you've got to differentiate yourself somehow, whether it's the house yeast or just some little characteristics. And like, if that's like aside from the body, because I feel like you have some of the best bodied beers that I'm aware of, and it's sick to have that little, like, you know, little extra touch in there, which is great. And the hop burps from this one, the burps are my favorite thing when you're doing the burp and it comes through your nose. The first, like, the Citra, the Singularity Citra, that shit was just a tropical fruit explosion coming out your nostrils. Oh, yeah. And then say something like this, it's completely different. And I think that, like,
that's the keef, though.
That's the keef.
That's the keef. That the burps will get you a keef all day long. Like that's where you can, like, it's. If you've ever tried like terpene beers, so there's people that make terpene beers. That's like, oh, it's pretty hoppy. And then you burp, and you're like, holy crap, this is not.
This is marijuana.
Not regular hoppy.
Oh yeah,
like, and it's like going in, you can't tell so much just because it's not like you get a little bit of the smells, you get a little bit of you have a lot of stuff going on, but like that burp, and your burp, like sometimes you burp them for an hour and you're like, this is not regular hop. And that's where, like, sometimes when we know that we're like, when the beer's really freaking intense, is like we'll have some of that on like, or like, I think one of the pulling strings ones that we did, not the triple, but like another one's like the Ribocco Ricao combo. That thing, it was just firing so hard that like you drink it and for an hour you burp and you're like, did we put terpenes in this? Like, what is this? Like, why is it so strong? It'll just trick you into thinking that it has that extra little kick. But yeah,
I love it. This is great, man. And once, like, I really appreciate, say, with like the differentiation within a lineup of all the different haze. Like, we've had 3 different New England IPAs, and they're all completely different. I think that's like just awesome. And I'm always kind of think, I guess I'm not that common, but maybe there's been enough people saying shit to me to make me think of it. But like sometimes there's people that, New England's all taste the same. You know, there's these traditional purist cats who don't fuck with it. And I'm like, they're completely different, bro. Like all of these, you see an oat cream double and then a single hop single, and now this is somewhere in between with some like total different hop products, and they're all completely unique beers, and I just think that's like awesome.
Like there's such a science to this, and we hear it on such a different level, talking to folks like you and Troy and and Bebo and Chris and whatnot. It's there really is such a science to kind of everything that can go into New England IPAs, and the variation that can happen between them, from the different ways in which you can use the products and the different products that are available on the market now. It's just wild.
Yeah.
But I think for us, the important part is like we are a brew pub, so the lineup of beer that it would ever have available, like you have to have a distinct difference every time you grab a pint. Like, or we sell like a lot of what we sell is flights. So if I was to have I every time I'm deciding on how we're gonna be making, like what the next IPA is gonna be, what's the next flavor, what's the next this, what are we doing, is I just walk out, I look at my beer board and go, this is a void. Okay, we don't have an oat cream. We're gonna hit it with this one. Okay, we don't have this thing on this level. Okay, let's just fill. Like it's all about like the kind of like instantaneous, like what is required in the tap room, and like the establishments that we have, that we want to have customers having stuff. So because of that, when you come and you like buy cans, there's going to be a very like large flavor variety, because it not necessarily, like if we were just a microbrewery, it might have been less distinct of a flavor, because we would just be trying to do like everybody wants Citra, everybody wants the Nelson, everybody want like just kind of hit the things that actually sell cans. But I always have looked at at like what I'm going to be outputting next on what is the hole in my menu.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Which is
I'll go like, because like, what am I brewing today? Okay, I have a Czech lager. Perfect. What's gonna be the next beer I'm gonna make? Okay, I'll make a Mexican lager. Now I have two lagers on the board. Okay, so what's the next one? Vienna, since it's a little bit red, or I'll go with the smoked malt lager, or like I have all those. Okay, I have two brew juices. Do I have a goza that kind of fits the realm of somebody who doesn't want to have a pureed thing? They want a smooth sour thing. So okay, I've got to fill that hole in. So it's just where everything that we do in the brewery is just trying to fill the patches up of like what is lacking in the beer menu that we have up on the board. And when we think that something is releasable, we'll go like, okay, we need to make this, like we're making this beer. Do we want to can it? No. Okay, let's just make it this size. So we just kind of output a certain size, and other stuff like the IPA stuff, and then we'll just output full sizes of those. But then we'll always have that, making sure that the flavors that you're going to be getting are going to like be very distinct, because it has to make it possible for the person to just like they start with the Citra, then they'll have whatever other 6.5% beer is, and like go, oh, this is so much different. Yes, of course it has to be, because you're just sitting here having us. You're not in a beer bar. You're not at home. You're having us. It has to be different.
Yeah.
I like
you
that. Yeah, go on, Nate.
Oh, I was going to say, you made me think of something there, like something that I've seen come up in several different conversations when you mentioned, kind of the like people who buy flights and kind of needing to make sure that you have something to to fill up that flight for the folks who want that. I'm curious how you feel about offering flights and people people ordering flights, because like the conversation that often brings up is kind of similar to the beer festival conversation, where like how much can you really get out of a beer by only having like a little 4-ounce glass of it and whatnot. But at the same time, from a business perspective, it is something that people want. Like rather than spending like $8 or whatever on a full pour to be to be able to spend 10 or $12 and be able to try four different ones. Like that's not, like, I know that is something that people want, but like from the guy who makes the beer, how do you do you have any thoughts on on offering flights and kind of the experience that people get from them and kind of what the business decision behind that goes to?
I think that it depends on what you're trying to get out of the flight, because yes, monetarily, like you said, like an equivalent amount of beer at least at our establishment, you're looking at like $9, and then if you have a flight, then you're getting to like 12, 13. So there's a stark difference for us to sell a flight to the person. To me, like I've always liked flights as a consumer to kind of decide what I want to have a pint of. Where like sometimes, or like there's just some stuff, like if there's smoothie sours on draft, I don't really want to have a pint of it. Like I'd kind of like to just try it, just give me a small sample. And places that don't offer flights, sometimes there's no option except for the bartender to just give it to you for free. Where like they'll just go up and like, hey, can I just try this? And it's like you feel like you're at an ice cream shop. And
like Baskin Robbins, like
so. Like, let's say at the annex we don't have flights. We're not like in our new spot because it's more about quick service, so we can't really take the time to fill up these little quick ones. So in many ways, like for the customers, I like it because if you're new in town, you're gonna hit up a few breweries. It's like if you come to us and I do what I just said before, like I try to fill up my beer board where I have a lager, a smoked beer, one stout, a pastry stout, go through the list of styles. Like, and that's what we get. We get people that are ordering like the 20 to 30 beers that we possibly can have on tap. Like it's really nice to be able to offer that to the people to have it. On the flip side, service side's annoying. Ratings are terrible. Nobody can properly yes, you can't really properly enjoy, and it is like one of the things that's hard is IPAs, sours, all those things. Those are kind of easy, but there's specific styles. Like I remember, like back in the day, I made a spiced stout where it was really meant to be a pint beer, right?
Yeah.
And like the fact that we offered it in like little taster cups was like, it's not spicy enough, but that it was the right amount of spice for a pint. Like, so stuff doesn't fully translate to small sizes, and obviously you can't appreciate it properly. But like
untapped reviews on flights,
shit.
like it's kind of bullshit, right?
Totally.
It's like we know that, like, let's just to give an example, I have a lager right now that's as good as the last lager I released. I don't see any difference between how good my highbrow was as a can, and that's like a 4.03 on Untapped, and my current draft only not canned released lager, which is a just Czech pills, but they're just as good. That's like a 3.6. So same, like, as good in many ways. Like I don't see any difference. Like when we release a draft only IPA, it's hard to crack 4. Really hard to crack a 4.
That's
interesting.
Ridiculous.
Interesting.
And beer, and strangely enough, sometimes we get backlogged at the brewery and we're not able to actually tap a beer that was released in cans, and like when we release the can, it'll be like 4.25 or something. And then once it gets released on draft, everything kind of just equates itself to 4.15. So it's just like everything kind of hits that middle. But if during the summer times we do a lot of draft only IPA, man, it's very hard to crack a 4. So
crazy.
It's because people come in and they have they kind of have the flights, right? So they'll come in and they'll have a flight of IPA, and the best IPA on that might be a 4.25. So everything under that, right? Everything that's not that singular better IPA will get knocked under.
Yeah.
But years ago, like thankfully, a few years ago, I stopped kind of taking
Caring.
my cues from Untapped and caring
Yeah.
because based on that, I would have never remade lagers or remade whites and remade stouts and remade anything, because like if you're gonna let ratings and stuff kind of dictate you, it's better like no, like you shouldn't be deciding what 100 people think about your stuff when you have 1,000 people having your pints, right?
Preach.
But
Well said.
but it's like the Untapped thing's a whole thing. That's like a whole other discussion.
We could have a whole we could have a whole other podcast on that.
We went into detail with Third Moon about that actually, and they were talking about the impact that this fucking app has on businesses. It's just insane, like how much power
Especially
it
for them.
wields. Yeah.
Especially for them, like anybody who is a microbrewery, the impact is much larger.
Yeah,
Because
it's crazy.
like us as a craft, like our stuff's not can sales, but like I know that like the random times that we've done exportations, like it's not a part of our business so much, but sometimes they only look at the ratings of the beers, and like it is kind of crazy what people will come and grab is just solely based on this one app's one set of ratings, and so by that statement it means that you should really never have lager and only have smoothies. Right? If you're gonna go look, like the only beers worth, like I've the highest rated beers we've ever made have been smoothies. IPAs are okay, and then everything else we make is crap based on the actual ratings that are there.
That's so... The IPA thing doesn't connect with me. I understand that smoothies are the highest because the perception that we talked about earlier, but in my humble opinion, I really think you make some of the best IPAs in the country, let alone Quebec.
It's indicative of the application. It's indicative of the thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's why at some point I just kind of gave up for a few reasons. Just because
That's
I was
so
like,
crazy.
I gave up because I didn't want to like make my decisions on what I was brewing.
Yeah.
But then the other thing was like at some point I gave up going like, because you feel like it's at a competition with other people, right? You know, because like any people, I'm highly competitive. I wanna be the best. Like I want to make the best IPA around. It just is what it is. And then if time and time again, it's like it should be that I should be winning one and then losing one. It shouldn't always be I'm losing every single one of them, and then this other brewery or these other breweries, no matter what they output, is always better. Then it's like it's that's where you kind of lose the concept of like wanting to look at this thing as a reference, because it's just like Canada, I think they'll never get a rating under 4.25 or 4.3. You know, they're fantastic. I'm not saying anything wrong about Canada, but like I don't think I have an IPA except for one that's above 4.25 or something.
That's
so it's
ridiculous.
just like so it never happened.
That's
So
insane.
so at some point it's just like you get kind of you just kind of like you want to go. I want to like, is this platform helping me grow? And it wasn't at some point, because I was like going, am I gonna finally do something that's gonna be better than some of the heavy hitters? And when you're just never gonna, it seems like you're never gonna attain it. And then you go to like Portland in like Portland or Seattle, and you're like, oh, nobody here is above 4.5, 4.05. I mean, it's like, how the hell does this whole town that makes fantastic beer everywhere not even able to crack 4.05? And then you go like other all these things, then you're like, this app is just not functioning for what we necessarily want. So
That's
it's
crazy.
It's just kind of what happens. And I think a lot of like, I think it takes years for brewers to kind of get over that stuff. You know, like,
right.
I wouldn't, like, I think it took 100,000 reviews for me to stop looking at it. So.
It's like it doesn't add up to me. That I don't understand why people would be. Is it because you're getting like how do I say this nicely? Like, because of where you're located in Montreal, you would attract a a more varied type of consumer than a brewery that's in an industrial park, for example, right? So is it because that these consumers are less knowledgeable and they're using Untapped and then they don't know, or like what's the...
I have no idea, but like as I said, like there's that weird thing about like cans versus draft. There is
Yeah.
a strange
I've never heard that before.
There's like, I mean, we see it just because of that. Like there's always like it's very common for really low rating draft, and it's not as common for really low rated
Like
like
cans.
can pours as much. And I don't know if it's because like people are buying what they want to drink at home. I don't know, versus because like sometimes it's like the like reds get the worst ratings. And
Yes.
it's like,
All day.
and they're like, I don't like reds. Like, well, why the fuck did you?
So
buy
why are you
this
rating
thing?
it?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Shut up.
Well, see, and this is like this is one of the biggest problems that I have with the app is that people don't use it as like an objective measure. They use it by whatever metric they decide that they want to measure it by. And you brought up a very good point when you're talking about the flight. Like if you've got a flight of 4 IPAs, and if you rank your favorite one 4.25, and then if you just kind of rate the other ones not on their own merits but in comparison to your favorite one, like you'd be rating that one a lot differently than if you were probably having a full pour from a can. But if you're comparing it to your favorite one, you might be giving it 3.5. But if you had a can of it on its own in a different experience, maybe you'd enjoy like maybe you would have enjoyed that and considered it on its own merits much more, and then you might be giving it a 4.25. But it's or it's one of those things of if someone just decides, well, like this is the rating system that I've decided on, where IPAs are my favorite, and that goes to 4.25. Whereas for lagers, even if lagers are not generally my favorite, like this one's really good, but it's a lager, so I'm only giving it 3.7, 3.75. Like when everyone decides on their own individual rating system, that's where this rating system really loses its objective value.
Good point.
It's something that these select what these ratings could do would be very interesting if the algorithm was built in a way that would actually make the thing interesting.
Yeah.
Something I bring up is that a few years ago, the most important rating thing for us was TripAdvisor, and
Wow.
like just because we're in like a touristy area. And one of the things that TripAdvisor changed at some point was like a few years in, like we were kind of always capped off at a certain amount of ratings that we were like just, we had a lot of new ratings coming in, but like it was limiting to how high of like, let's say, because if you search bars in old Montreal, then we would be up to a certain level because there'd be all this old history, like all these like I don't know 10 years worth of other stuff that was in front of it, so really hard to displace. Right. And then what they decided to do at some point is like go, okay, we're going to change our algorithm, we're going to change our rating system, and go like a 3-year-old rating is worth 50% that a 1-year-old rating is, you know? And it completely re-skewed everything. Because one of the biggest problems that there is, I find, with these apps is like they've kind of created this thing that doesn't evolve with anything, right? So it's like we're at 157, like we're at 100, I don't know, 180, I don't know how many hundred thousands of people that we have rating for us. At this point, we don't move. Like it doesn't matter how much good beer or bad beer we make. It doesn't matter. We are not going to shift. But anybody who comes in with 10,000 reviews is able to like either jump ahead of us or jump under us within like a year time frame. So they have to start figuring out, is there a way for them to like make these things more flexible? Because it'd be really interesting for us to like, as me as a consumer, to walk into, it doesn't matter where the hell I'm going. If I'm going to Vermont and I go onto an application, it makes like maybe Alchemist should be on top. You know, maybe they are still making the best beer, but maybe their 1 million reviews doesn't mean anything in the last 3 years, the last 2 years, even like the last month. Like, is
Yeah.
that really
Like
where the best beer is?
who's opened up in
like,
who's opened up in the last year that is worth consideration, that is just getting absolutely buried in this torrent of reviews?
like buried in the fact that like if you go to Vermont and you would go to like Untapped, you would check the thing, and I don't know what Alchemist is at. Like it's probably 1 point, like 4.3, 4.4. Like they're like no brewery is hitting that level anymore. Like they should, like if they were to open up, if Alchemist was to open up tomorrow, they wouldn't have that rating either, right? Like they would they wouldn't even be close to that rating. So it's the like they make amazing, very very specific beers, but it'd be very interesting to see what they would do with if like the app would be more like on any given like Monday or like month, you could open up the app and every position would switch. You know, like, oh shit, like the best haze is Toltec this week. That's crazy.
Right.
Oh, the best haze is now like Ontario. You get like, oh fuck, it's Blood Brothers is winning. Next week after you get Bells, and the week after Bellwoods. I mean, the week after that you have like Third Moon. Then it gets interesting. It's like, oh, what are these new products coming out that is like that like that's what I would want from that kind of app. I would want this thing that like, but it's not. It's very rigid and it's not moving, and it just creates this like this thing that just like it's very town specific more than anything. Based on history.
I'm looking at Untapped now, and I just searched for Vermont. So the number one rated in Vermont is House of Fermentology, which is the sour one from Foam, which is 4.34 average. Number 2 is The Alchemist at 4.33, so only 0.01.
1 million reviews. Or
756,000. Okay. Number 4 is Hill Farmstead at 4.32 with 1,330,000 ratings. And number 3 is Freak Folk. Yeah.
But Hill Farmstead, by that definition, can make the worst beer for 10 years. And still probably be ranked third. Like, because you would never...
Oh, yeah, right. Well, they're fourth.
Displace that 1.7 million reviews. Like, it would just never be able to displace it.
So the sheer volume is really in their disadvantage.
Well, it's not the disadvantage. I just mean, like, it removes when I make a beer, I'm looking at, like, I'm trying to make the beer in 2 weeks better than the beer I did now. Right. And so we're in a continuously evolving process, right? So we're always just trying to move beer forward, try to get better. And like, if you look at it from a time frame period, that's what all breweries are kind of doing. Right. And based on that, there should be somebody like that's really killing it at like in a very specific time frame. Like I might be making maybe next month I'll be making the best beer in Quebec, and the month after that it'll be another brewery, and the month after that it'll be another brewery. But there's no way for us to really tell what that is because the application doesn't do it properly. And that's what everybody refers to.
Yeah, it's become the industry standard in some strange way. Do you know what's even funnier? Because I use Untapped. I check in everything, but I never look at anything that anybody says because I don't give a fuck about their ratings. And I do it for my own. I used to have a spreadsheet that I would go into Tumblr because my shit synced to then. I would copy and paste into a spreadsheet and then send that to my phone. I did that for the first 3,000 beers, and I'm up to 8,200 tonight. And it got so Untapped's the easiest way to keep track of it. So I'm all over it. For me, I don't sit there and look at what anything else. So a lot of the numbers, I don't have a clue. I don't go to a brewery. I look at what it is, and I might, if they're not explaining it there, I go to Untapped to find out more information about the product. That's it. I don't give, and maybe if someone has something to say about it, I'll check that. But I never ever look at the rating. So I find this very interesting. So looking at Vermont,
but if you go to a new town.
I'm not looking at the rating. I'm not looking at the numbers at all. Because if I'm going to a new town, I've already looked up and I've asked people that I trust, I'm going to here. What's the like? Now I'm out here, right? Vermont was my closest in Montreal for 10 years. Now I'm here. Buffalo and Rochester, my closest. I've had to learn what's popping out here, and I've got a few mates who live in Rochester, so they've taught me about the two areas. And last Friday was the first day we actually stayed in Buffalo. We go all the time, but we always went to Rochester in the end, and it's like an hour and a half. It's kind of annoying. So we went to Buffalo, but I don't know. And the two breweries I went to were Mortalis and Frequentum, and both of them are from Rochester, and this was their Buffalo tap rooms. So I still didn't go to a Buffalo brewery. I've been to other half there before, but I need to learn a bit. I've been to Big Ditch and stuff. I need to learn a bit more about it. So I ask around about it, but I never once, I only learned literally, because you said it, how to search for a region on Untapped and see what's popping in that area. I had no clue until 3 minutes ago. So I guess I might do that now just to see what's popping, but I'd rather ask the people I trust, because I don't
ask.
Say I'd ask you, I'd be like, bro, have you been to Buffalo? What do you like, Derrick? Tell me what you're into, because I trust you, and Nate, I trust you. So I would ask my friends. I got enough friends in beer, fortunately, that I would rather take your advice than kind of this skewed advice on Untapped, based on what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
I think that's kind of fair.
I come from like the era of rate beer, so just like go on rate beer maps, just kind of
Right.
see what was what was in that region, and like, because like that's what you would do. That's what so many people's trips were based on. Like, oh shit, there's this highly rated brewery in this region. What other places can we hit up on the way to over there, right?
Totally.
So,
I mean, I know exactly what you're saying. So once again, I guess maybe I'm almost more old school in that I didn't use Rate Beer or Beer Advocate. I just ask people, and that's my easiest way to do it, because my friend in one of them in Rochester's the main beer writer in the whole region, and the other guy is a brewer at Mortalis, and they both know everybody, so I trust them. So I'm like, yo, boys, what's up? Like, tell me what's good, and that's the best way. So I looked at the Vermont one before. There was the whole top 10, maybe even the top 20 was all 4+ ratings. I'm looking at Quebec, 1, 2, 3. The first 4 are over 4. All the rest are in 3s. I think that says a lot, and I think that's bullshit, actually, because I think Quebec makes fucking insane beers, but the only 1, 2, 3, 4 are over like 4.01.
I think because Quebec is bigger, you might not be hitting you might be looking at Quebec City or something. But
I searched for the word Quebec, not Quebec City. But I'm looking here and I'm seeing.
If you look at Vermont, I think that might hit a range, but like Quebec is huge.
You're right, because I'm seeing number 1 Nanocinco, EXP, Emporium, BG.
That's all Quebec City.
Noctem, Epitaph. Okay. So how the fuck do you search for the province of Quebec then? Let me search for Montreal. Let me just see. I'm just curious, because now I've never looked at that in this way before. Okay, if I search for Montreal, okay, here we go. You're second in Montreal, 4.14 average.
Yeah.
Does Meso, then you, then Toltec, Iowan, which are selling anyway, Sir John. It's interesting though, and I never thought about the fact that the fewer ratings you have, the easier it is to just like go up. Like you said, like Hill Farmstead are going to struggle to sort of, because they got 1.3 versus the number
They're just
one.
not going to move.
Yes.
It's just not going to show anything about what it means in actual markets.
Yeah,
and that would have been fun. It'd be fun for somebody to come in, either them or somebody else. Doesn't really matter, to go like, what is the exciting current brand, and that's not what they're able to show.
Yeah. It's I guess it's not useful for that. Like, unless there's a way, there should be maybe some sort of like, well, they have like a feature here called trending beers.
Trending beers is interesting because it kind of shows you what people are drinking, or at least tapping in right now.
It's in distance.
Always kind of interesting.
And this is nearby me specifically. What's going on here, which is very interesting. I've never looked at this before. Honestly, I go in there, I register my shit just so I know, and I leave. I don't spend time. Like, a lot of people shit on Untapped, and it's cool, but I don't spend any time on it.
It's I think for like people like us, I spent so much time on it at the beginning of the year. I was like, the
The when
part
it
is especially because like it wasn't important for us, and then COVID happened where we got fully closed, and it was like a very important driving factor. And then after some point, when you crack a critical amount of ratings, it just doesn't become important anymore because
Yeah.
again, like you can't shift it. Like where we're at now is like minor amounts of stuff can move, but not really.
It can really only be incremental at this point.
Yeah, yeah, because
yeah.
because we started off as a contract brewery. Like we never we already had I think 40,000 reviews before getting our own brewery. So like we already and we when we started off we were like I think three something, so 370s, like just because it was just purely crap, like purely not made on premise kind of stuff. So it's
You had
this whole
less
thing. Like
control.
you just kind of get this like love hate relationship for that stuff where it's like anything. Like think about you if you were to release like I have 100. Like I think I'm saying 160. I think it's about 160. I don't know, 160,000 comments on something I outputted. Right. It's like think about if you had 160,000 outputs on one of your songs that you put out,
It's
and
going to
like
be
at
mixed.
some at some point you start like you read like the first while you read them and you keep up on them, and at some point you just like well it's whatever. Like but I think
Got
everybody
to just be noise at some point.
it just takes exactly it takes I think it's I don't it took years for me to at least let it go, and now it's like I might open up untapped every month or two. Like it's not something I ever look at, and but like if at some point it's something you look at like when you go to bed, it's something you look at in the morning. Because you're
Taking a
like
shit like fuck.
yeah, just because like is this good, like it's just you're like it doesn't matter what you do in life, you're looking for some amount of validation. Like you're looking
Yeah.
for is this okay, is like is I like I'm doesn't like you're what you're outputting like Craig as music, you're wanting to know what people think. What you're outputting Noah as like as articles, like what are people commenting on this thing. You just get these things that I think like it takes a while to like post and ghost like
Yeah. You got
like
to
to
get used
ever
to it.
like anybody who recommends to do that is somebody who has like that it takes years to get to that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear a lot of like celebrities, all like on Rogan or whatever. They're always like, "Don't read the comments. Like you read it,
Yeah.
and like you just gotta not." And because it doesn't, just because they have a voice doesn't mean they're right by any means. And I
You
think
just
that's what it is.
gotta
You
build it up.
Yeah, I love that. Are you guys down for a quick piss break, and then we'll come back and crack the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Boom. All right, we're gonna pause. We'll be back in a sec. All right, bladders are empty,
And we're
ready to go.
back.
So,
What
what
we
is
cracking?
it? What is it time for? Do we want to switch her up and go a little juice?
I could go with that.
Do it.
Okay, so we have three options. I'm easy because I know they're all going to be exceptional. Is there anything that either of you two are particularly excited about?
Well, I chose the last one, so one of you one of you two should pick the next one.
Well, okay, because I'm sure Derek could be like, whatever, bro. Okay, let me take a look. Take a look. Okay, so for the purpose of the pod, ooh, fuck, there's three bangers here. Jeez, ooh, fuck, what do we do? Do you think the cheesecake might be a good one? It feels ridiculous.
It's an interesting one.
I'm down.
Yeah?
Let's go for it.
Would you? Yeah. Would you prefer a different one?
No, it's good. Like like this was actually a big like something much different than we usually do, and it was like a question for us where like thickness is usually something that always comes up with these, and it's like always a debate on how thick should we go. These like this is not thick enough. It's a very like smoothie forward kind of thing to push, and the blueberry we used in this was just juice. Like it was puree, but like to say like that it was puree is kind of an overstatement. So we kind of said like fuck it, let's just release like this is the right it's really just the flavor is really freaking good, but the thickness isn't necessarily there.
Okay.
So we really I really like this beer. And it was actually something of a test on our side to go, what should we be aiming for in these beers? Does flavor win or does texture win? Because it's like texture's like that aroma thing, right? That I was saying before, where like you crack it and you pour that can of like, but there's only so many fruits that do that. There's banana does that. Like there's very specific mangoes do that, where like they pour in very specific ways. But like this one's not going to be like on the extreme levels, but in the past I find that I've had hard times drinking the brew cakes, and this one's just super drinkable.
Interesting. I see what you mean straight away. It's a little more chill than the others, but you know what? It's probably the way you were sort of talking. I thought you'd like a fruited Berliner or something is what it kind of sounded like almost. But
no, I mean it remains a smoothie, but like a lot of the times when we would release a brew cake, it's like the brew cakes were always the line of smoothies to me that were like, they're over the top, so fucking intense, like really, like they're really good, but they're just so much. And then it's like it's share with a friend kind of smoothies.
Gotcha.
But this one actually is nice in the way that like I could crack a can and probably drink it all. Like I could drink it to myself and then have another one after, where it's not always the case with these.
Okay.
Even though the flavor is really intense.
Even just on the nose, this shit is definitely crazy. So this is blueberry lemon, but also has graham crackers, cream cheese, and vanilla.
Yeah.
There she is. Okay, so it's 6.5 as well. So are the brew cakes always 6.5?
No, this one was just I had a higher percentage base.
Gotcha.
And there are a couple of imperial brew cakes too, I think, right?
Oh yeah, I've had them at 8%, guys. They're fucking insane.
So I haven't done it at 8% in a while. Like we may bring them back at some point. Just like the 5.2s, 6 somethings are pretty good. Just because like to get some of these, to make like an 8% beer as a smoothie, you need like an 11% base. And sometimes they have like, they're weird because like they give you more off flavors because of how sour they are. That's like, and I don't always like what the base tastes like, and it's hard to like mask some of the bad flavors that are developed inside of it. Versus like if you taste our smoothie, but like actually it's straight. Let's say it's not identified, but on draft that we have at the bar right now, we have like Imperial Goza, which is just our smoothie base. Okay. And it's the base is fantastic. It's just really, really good. So it's like it's a 6.5 or a 6.8 base. It's great. But like when you start cracking that like 10, 11, 12% sour, it's not always
the funnest.
It's always the happiest of beers at that point.
It would be fun to at least try the base at some point, because I've only had the actual things, but I'm excited to try this. Gentlemen, get that in you.
Cheers.
Sick. These are so fascinating. Like cheesecake sours, it's pretty insanely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I love that. You've been doing these for a while. Oh man, this is great.
We've been doing cheesecake for a long time. Like it's something we developed like years ago, and we kind of stuck to it. We like what it gives.
Where did the idea come from, first of all? Because it's like, to make a liquid cheesecake is relatively insane in the best possible ways.
It was just an anniversary. Like it was lining up to an anniversary. Like, what can we make that's kind of stupid? And so I kind of went to cheesecake.
That could be the episode name right there. What can we make that's kind of stupid?
That's kind of what it seems like. That's what most of my life is spent doing.
Oh, fucking hell, bro!
I spend more time trying to figure out like how to make these like either pastry stouts or smoothies or something taste good than I ever do spending time like developing IPA procedures and stuff is present, but it's these because these things are built, they're not made really. Like you're just kind of layering and adjusting and moving one way to another. So like you're just spending so much time, and you're just like the thing that the only reason that I finish with them is because we have to can them, because I think I'm fixing them till like they're about to go into cans.
Right.
Because
Non-stop.
it's like anything. It's like if you're making spaghetti sauce, it's just like you could just sit over that stove and just keep adjusting it, right? As like the same concept is what we do on these things. But
Yeah.
I don't know, like the when it comes to like that cheesecake one, I don't know where I mean, at this point, I've been doing it for 3-4 years. It might have it's something that came up, and we just wanted to kind of do something in that path. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening back then on smoothies, and we're just looking at what the US was doing, and we just tried. But the things like we were just seeing what they were doing based on the label,
Rather
right?
than trying it.
You're just like, oh, cheesecake beer, okay, that makes sense, but you have no idea what the hell it would be. So it's like, let's see if we can make it taste like cheesecake.
Right. And then just go as ridiculous as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, the first test I ever did was so cheesecakey that everybody said that like that's fantastic, but they would never finish more than 3 sips. So just slowly dialing it back until you found a point that made it okay.
That's a fair point. Do you happen to know, just because I know we were talking before about this sort of stuff, like who was the originator of smoothies in the US? Was it 450 North? Not sure.
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
I don't think it was them, but I don't know who it was. Like
Okay.
definitely, it could 450 North would be like similar to I guess what we did,
Right.
where like
They might
we're
have been
not
the
first
cans.
ones, but they might have been the first ones throwing it into the cans and really doing the wide distro.
Makes sense. I managed to get some in Atlanta, of all places, in August. No, sometime last year, and tried some of them. I never tried them before, and I'd seen people lose their mind, and I feel like it was like they were great, but they weren't anything that you don't do or that we can't get here. Like,
It just depends on what you get. Like I've throughout the years I've gone to it's sad because like when I go to the US, like almost the thing I buy the most is
smoothies.
not really because I wanna like because it's a style that I highly appreciate. Like I like making them because I do find them challenging and figuring that out. But just like what are other people making? Like what does this stuff taste like? Because like I could go in and have IPA, and it's very interesting to have like IPA, but like IPAs are more similar within themselves than what a smoothie can be. And more often than not, I'm really like if you think that IPAs are on a different level like in Quebec than other places, I really find that smoothies are like at least what's being output in Quebec is higher than a lot of the states.
Then elsewhere.
And a lot of the time you get, but I've had experiences where I've like gone through cycles where everything I buy is horrible in the States, and then I go back a year later and everything's like a lot of stuff's a little bit better, and then you just kind of like you just never know where the people sit. They're hard to do because they're just based on how good your fruits are. How good are you at sourcing fruit? It is what that's that whole thing is
What it comes down to. Interesting. Yeah, that could make sense actually, with regard to smoothies. And I feel like now I'm like sort of as you were talking about it, I remember in Florida last year, we were in Miami for a month, and they love smoothies down there. It's insane. They were everywhere. Every single brewery had smoothies, and I was like, kind of like, relax, bro. Like it's cool, I guess. But maybe it's like that's what happens when it's 30 degrees every day. Like you just want to drink some juicy ass shit. So it's like, and I feel like they were almost like lighter than, I feel like what we get up here because of the weather is a little more decadent, and that's what I felt as well with the haze as well. I feel like everything in Florida that I had, aside from the pastry stouts, were like a little more restrained maybe.
yeah.
Because you don't always want this big thick boy, regardless of style, I guess. Except pastries once again, because I believe they invented it, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I'd heard down there. But yeah, and even like I discovered Imprint. I think they're from like Connecticut or Pennsylvania or something, and they were you get them in Western New York, and they're pretty dope as well. Like I've been enjoying their stuff, but they're the main sort of ones that would be them. And 450 North was kind of hard to get, but yeah, I feel like not every brew, like other half did some smoothies, and they were kind of chill. They weren't like as intense. They were a little more like thinner, I guess overall. Yeah.
Well, it's something that we're like looking. It's something that I'm looking at doing also, where like the smoothies have a certain intensity, and we're like looking at dialing it back. Even when I was developing smoothies at the beginning, we were like, it was a lot less thick as they are now, and we're trying to see how we can develop a secondary line of medium thickness, where it's just like, because it's even the same thing with IPAs on our end of like, there's these take home, like we kind of sometimes try to see how can we, is there a distinction between take home and drink on site, where like a smoothie like that it's really nice for a take home can, but maybe a drink on site you're not going to have a second one. So is there like, should there be something that's in the middle? So we have a few things that is like, because like our smoothies are, because they're thick, they're like on a recirculation tanks, so we actually have tanks that are pumped that are just keeping them in continuous motion, so that we have a homogeneous product coming out.
Wow.
And another thing that we have, like in some of the drafts things that we have right now, is like we've slowly been developing something we call double fruit, like double fruit goes. So those are like 50% fermented and 50% unfermented fruit, but they're more push towards juice than anything, so we don't have to recirculate them. They have no thickness, like they're just meant to be like kind of just fruitier than fully fermented, but like in the mid-range. So kind of just like, is there that middle ground, and or is there just, should we be going to 50% fruit puree, like 50% less fruit puree, and have that kind of just like, let's have 3 of these? Because like a lot of the times that's what I like, that's the smoothie stuff, is like the smoothies where they're at a lot of the time is almost where a pastry stout is at, where it's like they're meant to be those are the ones that everybody kind of wants and talks about, these massive over the top ones, but they're not necessarily the ones that may have the person want to like go through a volume amount of them. They're just too intense. So like, we're trying to see what we can necessarily do, but it's just, you always fall down the pigeonhole because you just start making these things and you go, let's go thicker. Because it's just like what you do when you're sitting around and doing it. So I don't know. We're trying to slowly find our ways, but that's what's nice about having these tap rooms, is like I always try to consider what a draft only beer is and a take home beer is. And like a lot of our double smoothie, our double fruit stuff, and our double things are like our highly drinkable stuff, strangely enough, is something that we're not really considering like canning so much, because every time we can some of these things that we consider to be more like high volume, they don't really sell so much.
Right. So they seem to be an on-prem. It's such an interesting that you brought all this up. I hadn't considered that, because even as you're saying it, I'm drinking this, and this is an intense beer at 6.5, which is on the higher end for a smoothie, for at least BreWskey styles. I don't know if I could drink more than 1 can of this. Like, I have finished a can, I'm like, oh, that was glorious, and I'm completely satiated. Just like when you have a pastry stout and you're like, oh, I could probably split this bottle because you don't even need the full one, and I'm good. But if you were to have a middle one, you don't want to necessarily take that one home, because we are all at home now, and this is perfect. But if I was at a brewery, it might overwhelm you a little bit, and you're not trying to be overwhelmed when you're there, because the fun of being out and being at a brewery is to try a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't do the flights no more. Like I used to do them a lot. I would just Nate and I were talking about this recently. I would rather go in there, and even if I'm driving, I'll get 2 pints of something. I'll get a crispy and then probably a haze would be the most likely. And then maybe if they got a small pour, I'll get something, if they got, sometimes it's 16, maybe they might have a 5 ounce or 6 ounce offering. So then you get like a small pour of something fun. afterwards, but I can see how there's a great need. And I like the idea, like you said, like the double fruit goza, where it's sort of like half fermented, so it's kind of like a typical Berliner Weiss type of style, but then you got a little bit more, so it's a little thicker, but not quite as much as this that will overwhelm you. And instead of buying dessert from your kitchen, which is obviously phenomenal, this is the fucking dessert in the glass right here. So it's cool to have that balance, and I hadn't really considered that, and I wonder if you got a unique business compared to a lot of breweries based on where you are, which I think actually I do want to touch on as well, because we didn't even talk much. We referenced the annex, which is the new part of the brewery that I got to see. I think it was about to be open. It was not open to the public when I came through.
No, I think it was open. It was
open? The party wasn't there yet. You're about to have the launch.
Maybe we were
that.
just about to launch it or something. It had been open, like soft open, just like for can sales and stuff mostly.
Gotcha. So for people who haven't been, so BreWskey is located in Old Port Montreal, which is, like Derrick mentioned earlier, is the tourist area. Beautiful, beautiful. It's nothing like it. It literally feels like Europe if you haven't been. And you guys are in this sick spot. So when I first met you, you had the pub, which was sort of on St. Paul, Rue St. Paul up the top there. So it's this kind of more English pub style, cozy, smaller, but you had a wicked patio at the front, lots going on the street. Then we were talking earlier about the tap room, which was downstairs and kind of connected. The whole place is a maze. And then you've got this super high ceiling place with this, all glass, which is great. You made it all glass so people could watch the brewing process and everything like that. Tons of tables and an insane patio on Rue de la Commune, which looks over the St. Lawrence River. And then that's the fucking bomb. And then now, if you kind of, it's up like on the way to the bathroom, there's this new place at the back, which is this kind of cozy, like mini kind of pub where you can also look into part of the brewery, but it's got a wicked kitchen. And I got to try some of the stuff that you were like, the new brewery, exactly. Sorry, and then you got some beautiful like fun food coming out of there. You were messing around with at the time, like this. What was it? It was like a beef or pork or some sort of like big piece of meat.
So it's like so that space is a smokehouse.
Smokehouse, okay.
So we're still kind of playing around with it, trying to figure out how we're doing it.
Gotcha.
So, but like, yeah, during the summer the kitchen part will be kind of interesting how we're going to be running it. But like that whole space is meant to be running more as like that kind of tap house thing, kind of like closer to what Miss Orm's doing, or like the rest of the breweries are in the US, where it's like, it's because at some point we capped out on how many employees we wanted. So, and the new space be like, and there's like just so much table service that we could do that if we're going to run table service in these spaces where we were adding 2 terraces that were quite large, it would have been too demanding. So the whole premise over there is just like, you go inside, you order your beer, and you go sit down. It's just like a little bit of a chiller environment.
It is quite a bit chiller,
and it's nice to have that.
Yeah, so it's like there's no like, as much as like, I don't want to call waiters pushy, but it is kind of their jobs to sell. Whereas like they kind of go around, they're always asking you like, so you can have, we already have all those things. That's kind of like what we've always tried to push forward, is that you get to choose the environment you want. Do you want like more of a pub location? Go to the pub. You want more of a bistro kind of sit down, but you want table service, then go to the tap room. And like the tap room has 30 beer lines instead of the pub and the annex have 20. So as we fill those up, you'll get more beer at the tap room, more options at least in the tap room that you get in the other ones. And then the annex is meant more to be like, just kind of, if you want a beer, just like, our main purpose is going to be figuring out how to streamline. So we've never experienced that space, so we don't know how to play with it. But like, what we want to make sure that people get out of it is quick, is like, we don't want long lines, we don't want any of that stuff, and we'll figure out how we deal with that as we live through that space. But it's like, it has to be, get your stuff and be able to get it quickly and be able to go back down and sit down and enjoy it.
I like that a lot. Can you order the food in the same way? Like, say, like, is it like more like small things that you could go up to the bar and you'd be like, hey, can I get this little food thing and this pint? And then you sit down, they'll bring it out to you. But then you got to
So
go back to order again.
right now, it's always you go back to the bar and you order.
I love that.
But the like there, it's kind of the POS setup that we have is square. So we're trying to figure out if we want people to be able to order from their seats and then go get the stuff at the bar. It's like, well, as of right now, we're kind of like
okay.
we're like a 35 seat restaurant, so it's simple. But we're gonna step into summer and see what we want to do. And we don't we have some ideas, but we always just allow ourselves open to what like to flexibility. So there's a lot of options that may pop up. Where like obviously Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, you're gonna go inside, you're gonna buy your stuff, and you have a little beeper, and if the thing beeps, and you go get your food. You know, like that's how it is. Is that going to be the most possible way to do it the rest of the year? We'll see, because it's like the downside that we have is being a historic building. It means we have one like 36-inch door with a set of stairs that goes outside, right? So like we need to make sure that like the fluidity of the spaces still kind of works, so like that we don't have too many people moving around. So we're gonna see. We don't know what we're gonna be experiencing. Is it gonna be insanely busy? Then we'll modify one way. If it's going to be a little bit more quiet, then we'll modify. We'll just stay with this kind of allow the person to move around. So we're like, it's something that we're going to explore, but like, because number one's always going to be making sure that the consumer has a good experience. And like, it's always putting ourselves in those shoes of going like, what do we want from these spaces? Because like that's why we've kind of put ourselves as table service a lot of the time, because like a lot of what we wanted from our spaces was just table service, because like that's what made sense. And it's the first time like we tried doing the bar service at the tap room when we opened up, and it was just too much of an issue, so we had to move to table service.
Gotcha.
But this new space is not something that we would ever move to table service. It's just going to see how we're going to do it. Because like we saw a lot of stuff in the States of like kind of QR code scan and then people run stuff to you. This is something like that could happen, but it's definitely not. There's not going to be waiters. There's not going to be any of that stuff that we have.
Gotcha. I think, yeah, the QR code thing is cool, because then you could get them to like if you have that system where you can put a credit card in, and it'll kind of like make sure that they'll order it and the credit card's already in there, and then they can pay the check directly from that. Like I actually had a place here that did that, and I thought that was pretty dope to be able to pay on that, so you don't have to bother the server so much. But like there's something cool about the multi options of the three spaces in BreWskey that, like, say if like I'm like, okay, if I want to say pre-annex, if I wanted to just go grab a beer, I'd have to go and get some sort of table service, and it makes it like, what if it's busy and there's a line? You're like, oh, fuck. But now, if I'm like, oh, I'm going to go see a movie, I'm going to go see a show, and I want to go get a beer before I do that, and I don't want to do a full table service, I don't want food, I just want to go get a beer and sit down, talk to my friend and go, you can go to the annex, go to the bar, be like, hey, get a pint of this, boom, sit down, you're good to go. Like it's and then also, if you're feeling frisky, you got those double fridges right there, so then everything's right there as well. So cool, let me get a little 4-pack, let me get a little 12-pack to go, whatever.
And what I'll add on to that is that the retail experience is much chiller at the annex than trying to do it at the bar, like in the tap room.
When everyone's busy,
it's a much calmer experience, and and just kind of really able to feel like you can take your time and pick out what you want, and it feels like a little bit of a much lower pressure situation when buying your stuff to go. It's a really good vibe doing that at the annex as opposed to at the bar at the tap room.
Yeah, that was the major. I think that was the major thing of like us deciding to go. Let's kind of let the waiter be able to, or the person behind the bar, talk to the person, but let the person be able to grab their shit, because because before it was that, it was like we put it in a way because it was a restaurant, right? So we didn't want to have just like
Like
doors and stuff,
open fridges, yeah.
open fridges, and then what always caused the issue is like the most amount of sales would be on a Friday or a Saturday. And it's like you'd have somebody there that's just trying to make drinks and trying to pour pints for people. Go like, oh, so what do you want? And like, so they're not really able to help the person, like just talk to the person and just be able to give suggestions and stuff. So like that's like the major thing that we wanted from the new space is like making it so that there's like a customer experience for just like the retail part of the sales where like it's not at the bar at our tap room. It's now its own little thing, it's its own little spot, and then like there's no pressure, take your time. Like what we actually thought of as the initial like premise before you even wanted to put seats there was like you could come in, you buy a pint, and you like kind of buy your beers while you're having a pint, right? Which was not really
That's
possible
dope.
before.
Yeah.
Because you could like shop for your like there's the merch section which we didn't have, so you could have all these things that so you walk in, buy a pint, like take 20 minutes, 30 minutes, take your shit, like take your stuff, and then and then you could go off. It's like a nice little experience more than just kind of feeling like you're bothering the bartender for like what you want to have.
Yeah. It's that true brew pub experience, which I think is like it rounds out your offerings because you got three distinct areas that you can essentially choose your experience. I've never seen anything like it personally. I think it's extraordinarily unique. And it's actually, I didn't, because I feel like every time I go, I've either just gone there to sit down and eat or drink, or I've gone to see you and Guillaume, and like I hadn't gone and experienced that, like, oh, it's Friday night, I want to go get some cans, and like, and I'm experiencing what Nate was talking about, and I'm like, this is now like that I've seen it, and you know, it was all, like I said, it was like soft launch when I was there, and you're about to go like fully hard with it, but it's cool that it's sort of like you got that brew pub experience, but you got all the other. I don't know. It's just like it's super unique, man. I think it's great, and like it's whatever people are wanting from a brewery experience or a restaurant, essentially, you're able to offer that at one of the most peak locations in the city, which is fucking awesome. With some of the best beers in the province, if not the country.
Yeah.
Can't lose. It's sick. The other thing we didn't talk about yet, we're coming up on 3 hours, which is great. The anniversary is of the tap room.
Tap room.
The tap room for how many?
5 years.
5 years. Fucking crazy. That is when?
Next week.
Next week?
Our release is on Saturday.
Okay. What's happening?
Bunch of like we kind of pushed the tap room stuff to more local things. So like when we opened up the tap room, it was kind of only Quebec products on the rail, like for hard alcohol and wines and stuff. We slowly moved away from there because just the demands and what we wanted to offer kind of increased. But like for the tap room anniversary, it's kind of just almost all Quebec stuff.
Okay.
So we didn't really push on the outside because like we usually would go on a little bit Ontario, a little bit Quebec, a little bit let's just what can we get out of like the US, a few places. But what we decided for like for this anniversary was just like we stuck everything Quebec for the exception of like YCH, just because like YCH opened up Brassard like a Brassard warehouse. So like I guess they're Quebec-ish now. Right. So like that's where so all the collabs are pretty much all Quebec based for that. We're gonna have I think we have like 11 or 12 beers releasing next week.
Jesus. Well, just so you know,
shit.
By the time this comes out, this pod will come out in like 3 or 4 weeks, so we can say it all now.
So I mean, unless something drastically happens to these beers, because if I do collabs, I put collab quality ahead of everything. So like if I'm not happy with what they are, then they're not coming out. But it's going down the line. It'll be like Catch, Nano Cinco, Missorum, Toltec, Abordage.
Yes.
Is that? I think that's pretty. And YCH are like the realm of the collabs, and then the rest is our beers. So we
Nice.
have in there. What we've decided to do is the first time I've been trying to figure out a reason to do this is a kind of double release smoothie sour
Okay.
where it's a brew cake, but it's in two parts.
Okay.
Where there's the cake and there's the icing,
And you pour them
and
together.
you can mix them if you want to.
Oh,
but
that's dope.
But they also work separately.
Okay.
So we'll like. I mean, we haven't made them yet, so I don't know if they're gonna work well, but I'm sure they will. Like, so it's strawberry crème pâtissière ice cream. I mean icing with like raspberry blueberry angel cake. And
Oh, come on.
we'll see how. Like, hopefully they work. They should work well together and separately. That's the whole idea on them.
Lord. Okay, that's spectacular. And people can come down and grab that next Saturday for that.
And then we have a barrel aged barley wine, a few stuff like.
Oh shit! I wanted to actually bring that up. Two of my favorite beers I had last year were bottles. One Nate got me, and one my friend Fred got me. One was called Mage. That was what was that again?
Yeah. That was a coffee. I think Mage was a foam collab. Coffee, like Vermont coffee.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That was disgusting. And the other one was, I think you did a barley wine stout blend.
Yeah.
What was that?
Widow Vibes, I believe.
Yeah, that was the other one I had. Just crazy, man. Like, I feel like that was the least style I'd probably had from you.
Yeah.
Like, what's up with the barrel program? That's fucking crazy.
It's very limited. Like it was usually like 6 barrels maybe per year. Now we've up to 30. But like,
yeah.
I mean, space is what we we only have so much space, and just we're very strict with it. It's like if something's really firing on all cylinders, then it's going to come out in like a solo barrel form. In a case like the barley wine stout thing, that was we had 2 barrels that were just better together, and then if they're okay, but they're not showing necessarily defects, then they're going to become some sort of version of the pastry stout. So like the throughout the other anniversaries were I forget what they were called. Rupture, I think, was like the the marketing and the name of the beers are, I don't know as much, but like the Rupture, I think, is the brand that's just like pastries. It's a pastry stout, but made with barrel aged beers. So
Gotcha.
those are always going to be the ones that are like the offset. But like we do very little of these things, and so far we've been lucky on getting things that have come out nice.
Okay.
Because barrel aging is luck. It's always is. Like you throw something weird in there. You don't like, because anything that comes out great from a barrel didn't go in tasting very good.
Right.
So,
Yo, I heard that's a thing. You make a different type of beer for a barrel. Like, it's a specific thing.
like you can make specific type of beers that go into barrels. Like a lot of what we've done is just us. It's like experimenting towards pastry stout bases, but they were like overly roasty or too intense or really like one way or another, and then we'll put those into barrels because we don't know what we're doing. Like it's like the barrel at a certain point, like it's like we're not Firestone Walker that has like thousands of barrels and like years of experience. Like we don't, like, we're learning about which barrels do what.
Right.
And we're learning about how a beer modifies itself going into barrel. And we've had great beer go into great barrels, come out mediocre. And we've had really terrible beer go in okay barrels and come out great. So it's just, and so it's not a direct, at least for us, it's not a direct science yet. We don't know like which way they're going to go. All we know is like, it's just based on what we like when we taste them. So it's just like when we pull nails out and we just taste them, like this thing's good. Okay, pull good. Let's put them into tanks. And sometimes I've had stuff that like my notes are make into a cocktail. like figure out how to do this, and then we put them into tanks and we carbonate. We're like, okay, no, modify this. Let's bottle it. It's gonna be great. Like we just know it's gonna go okay. And like some stuff goes into bottles, some stuff goes into kegs because at a certain point, like a barrel is 220 liters, but by the time you output full liquids, like 170 liters. And so if we actually put them, we could either put them into little bottles. They'll give us like 400 bottles, or sometimes we'll just decide to draft them because like just them on draft will last just a month and it's less work. Gotcha. So you never really know what we're going to be doing on our end. It kind of depends on how much time we have and what we want to do.
I just looked it up now. The Widow Vibe. This was one of my favorite beers. I had this 4.75. I gave this on tap. I fucking love this beer. And the other thing I really loved about it, speaking of that, was the small bottle, and the beautiful like I don't know, like metallic blue wax dip was stunning. I'm just looking at people's pictures on Untapped, and because people are even drinking it now, and God, this was fucking good, dude. And it was, I know Nate and I have a big thing as well. We always talk about the smaller format for big beers like this.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to sort of like, sometimes if it's anything more than 500 or whatever, 475 or 473 or 500 mils, like it's a little tough sometimes to get into it, like for yourself. But these those small bottles, the 375 bottles, are so perfect. And you can be, doesn't matter what the ABV is, you're good.
For one, like for one person in a single drinking session, like that size is money. Like you can handle almost any strength in one sitting with that size.
Yep, it doesn't matter. It's just, and it goes further for you too. Like you said, you got more bottles, which means you can sell it for more, and people would pay it, and it's just so convenient, and it's not gonna like clog up your cellar as such. And we're just gonna sit on it forever. Like you're actually gonna drink it. Like I think I drank it pretty quickly after I got it. I was like, oh, I don't have to worry too much about it. Sometimes you look like, oh man, that's a lot. God, can I deal with that? But like 375, like Nate said, like you don't even think twice. You're like, fuck yeah, let's go. It's
what's actually interesting is that I forget which anniversary, but there was one that we did the same beer in two different bottle sizes.
Okay.
And at the anniversary, the small bottle was the high seller of that beer. But then over time, the bigger bottle outsold, like volumetrically, the smaller one. Where it was kind of a weird one because, like, at first, like, oh, we're gonna run out of those small bottles. They're gonna be completely gone, by I think the release was Friday or something. They're like, oh, they're gonna be completely gone by Monday, and we're gonna have all these big bottles. We should have just done small ones. And then it took maybe a week to finish them, but they almost came out identical, if not the bigger one winning. So it's kind of an interesting thing where it was like all these kind of what it showed to me was like people like you guys or like me that would have shown up early to grab bottles wanted the small one, and then the people that were just kind of showing up wanted to grab beer a little bit later kind of wanted a bigger one for some reason.
It's an interesting experiment.
I kind of look at the big ones as being like something that's just going to sit in my fridge. I'm going to be stuck with.
Yeah.
I'm never going to crack them, but like a 375 or 350 makes a lot of sense.
Easy.
And
even 500.
We were trying to see is there a way for us to do, but like a 500 is interesting also. Mm-hmm. They're it's something that we question every time we do these things, right? It's like, should we be doing 5s, 375, or bigger?
Well, you know what's interesting though? Like I'm just looking at the one. So the Mage was 500 mil, and that was fine as well. So I have maybe I do it differently, but I have a night like Wednesdays is my big beer night, and I'm able to. I do it. I don't drink until after dinner, so I got I'm full. And I'll have usually a warm-up beer, and that might be anywhere between 8 and 10%, and then I'll have a big one. And the big one's not, unless I'm doing a 750, then I'll do the 750, the whole thing, but I prefer not to. But I'm able to do a for example, you could have like a Pechet in the bottle, and then you could have a 500 ml or 473 ml something like a pastry stout or something, and that might be 12%, 13% after maybe an 8 to 10, and then I'm fine. And I've been able to do it, but anytime it's larger, it doesn't super work. But we had Third Moon on a few weeks ago, and we drank. They had their quintuple bone tree at 13.5%, an IPA, their big bone tree, and it was in a 473. We were like, what the fuck is in a 473? They had their quadruple in the Red Bull can, and they were like, people were complaining that the shit was too small. Like, fuck, put it in the big can. So I think you're right. I guess I want to echo your sentiment that you're seeing both, and it's like, I guess there is no right answer except for putting it in multiple formats and seeing what happens, but that might not be super practical for packaging to be able to sort of manage that.
I certainly don't think so for IPAs. That couldn't be practical.
Yeah, I think you're right with that.
Like the question really ends up being is the future stouts glass bottles, right? Because we're seeing it more and more, the 12-ounce cans being like something that people are releasing stouts into.
Yeah.
And is that going to be the continuation? And I think like the big question is that, like, for us, the reason why we wouldn't necessarily can a pastry stout, or like not a pastry stout, more probable than a barrel aged, is just that you kind of lose the value on it. Where at our size, we're only getting so much of the stuff. Where like if you're somebody because like a lot of our barrel stuff might be 1 or 2 barrels gets blended together. But like if you're anybody else, then maybe you're getting like 5, 6, 7 barrels inside of it. Then like reducing the value of the beer would increase the amount that you're selling, so it makes more sense to can them that way. But people are always going to be willing to spend more on bottles.
Yeah, I kind of like, that's the one style. Like, I would prefer cans 95% of the time, and I just feel like with the big stouts, it just kind of feels nice, and it differentiates the drinking experience, even if it's solo. Like, if I'm doing it on my little Wednesday, I'm like, well, I'm drinking cans of IPAs and Crispies or whatever all throughout the week, but then when I do have my little stout night, like, it's nice to have it. I got my little cellar in this house. Like in my old house, I just had boxes next to my bed, but now I got a room and I'm able to put them in. I can look at it. I'm like, oh, look at these fucking bottles. They're all so beautiful. Like, it's like I'm actually really enjoying that experience of them being in bottles. And I would say, aside, there's a few breweries that do put them in cans. I don't have a problem with the cans, but like, I think the bottles are I agree with you, man. Like, I think the bottles are the way to go.
Bottles are better, but like it's when people put them into cans and try to get the value of the bottles that drives me crazy. If I see a 355, I don't care if it's barrel aged stout, like, it's a 355. If you're selling that thing more than $8, it's crazy. So, but a 375 bottle for like $14 doesn't make me.
You're not going to question it.
But it's kind of like a weird. It's a weird mindset on that size.
I've noticed
it is like what that consumer is, and that's what we all kind of are, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm just even thinking like Third Moon put their regular pastries in cans, and then they do the barrel aged stuff typically in a bottle. And then they got these little like wax dipped like Red Bull size cans, and they put the little wax on top to like make it, to differentiate it from a regular can as well. So it's like I feel like it's like whatever works. You got to know your consumer is probably what it comes down to. Is like, what do they want, and also how do you want to present it? And there's no real right answer to all this stuff with all that. But okay, look, we're nearly at 1 a.m. and we hit 3 hours. This is awesome, dude. This has been fucking great. I'm really glad we got to do this and catch up. And the beers were exceptional. This is so good. The brew cake. I love this shit so much. Dude, this is amazing. Thank you so much for your time, for hanging out, for dropping all the knowledge. I appreciate it. I feel like we got into some real interesting shit tonight, man. This was fun.
We sure did. This is a genuine pleasure.
For real.
Well, anytime.
Yeah, man. Well, now you're the equal leader, so I don't know what else to do, but you're going to want to have to be number one, no?
Yeah,
I feel like
across 6 years makes me. I don't know if
It's like I feel like you're gonna have to come back. Maybe we have to do it sooner than later to get you to be to get the most. There's nobody else. You're the equal. Dude, you don't want to be equal.
No.
You want to be number one.
So like, and definitely equal, but you're definitely like the number one Quebec guest
Oh, without question.
There you go.
There
I
you
said
go.
winning.
by leaps and bounds.
Leaps and bounds. No, man, it's an honor and a pleasure, dude. You're a champion. We appreciate you a lot, and we're both such massive fans, and it's really cool just to see everything and grow, and like it's exciting. I think it's awesome, and it's always for me whenever I can get a hold of your stuff. It's such a fucking pleasure. I love it so much, and now I have a bunch in my fridge. I'm moist. It's amazing. You're the man. Where can everyone find BreWskey online? What do you want people to know? I mean, also about the anniversary. Probably no point telling them because this will come out afterwards. But
like the just BreWskey.beer is where you get our stuff. Look up BreWskey on Google. You'll get all the links that way. It's kind of complicated, mostly because of our 3 locations being stuck in one little like blip of a location. It's kind of hard to see them all different.
Yeah.
They kind of like Google, like if you're on an iPhone, tap room comes out first. If you're on Google, then it's the pub. Then it's all a shit show in that sense. So like the best is just always like, but if you make your way to just BreWskey.ca, you'll find everything, and then BreWskey.beer if you need some beer on the store.
Love it. And on Instagram, I think it's Pub BreWskey.
I believe so.
Yep. So check that out. All the new releases.
You go to BreWskey.ca and you click the Instagram button.
You go there down the bottom, or you go on Facebook, wherever you're at.
Exactly.
If you're in Montreal, which I hope you are, because it's the best, make sure you swing by. It's like it's not a question. Like if you're going to be in Montreal and you're a craft beer enjoyer, that's what.
Can't recommend it highly enough.
No, and even if you're a casual beer drinker, because kind of what Derrick was saying, I was going to mention it before, like it's the place I would recommend probably number one, because no matter where you're at in your journey, there's something. If you're just casual and you want somewhere to drink, well, you got some, like you said, some blanche or some fucking, like a blonde or something kind of like, a red ale, something like chill. If you're bit more experienced drinking, you want some of the smoothies or the haze or the stouts, whatever, they got everything for you. And I just think it's like the easily the best place, with obviously the best food. And then you got the bakery upstairs as well at the pub, which we didn't even talk about, but that's the whole thing. I guess it's a little off topic, but still, you got the cool bakery with bread and pastries and all that stuff.
Yeah
it's
as simple as that.
Basically, there you go. You can't go wrong. Brother, stick around for a sec. We'll wrap this up and we'll finish up offline. But Nathaniel, where can everyone find you online, sir?
Absolutely everywhere at NathanDoesBeer.
Love to hear it. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash a thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell, Nathaniel.
Ding.
So you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BreWskey Podcast, and check out the long form audio so you can hear attractive gentlemen like Uncle Derrick talk about craft beer every week. Give us them 5 stars on Spotify and fucking Apple Podcasts, and then go to Google and Untapped and give everything 5 stars for BreWskey. Okay, I don't want to hear another word about it. You give them 5 stars and you don't question it. Don't be a dick. And we'll see you legends next episode. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.